the future, telling supporters in Philadelphia the momentum is on our side. The BBC's Tom Bateman has the details.
The speech was focused on optimism and hope. The Harris campaign thinks that creates a clear counterpoint to what they assert are the shadowy, foreboding messages of her rival. In reality, both campaigns have dwelt on claims of dystopian prospects if they lose. While Kamala Harris has outperformed Joe Biden's poll ratings before the Democrats ousted him as their candidate, she hasn't broken the deadlock with Donald Trump right up to Election Day. And now it is over to the voters after one of the most highly charged and unpredictable election campaigns in this nation's history.
Recapping the top story this hour, Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson says the main vision of the 7th administration is to turn the country into a construction site. Headlines at 3:30 for SFM News. I am Dino Mutaung.
Coming up in your sports, the SAR approaches women set for thrilling home and away matches, and Scotland all set for Bok Clash. More details at 3:30.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Funny weekend on a high note with final analysis on Sunday night. The premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Welcome indeed to the National Pulse. So there we are, getting close to not quite midweek, is it? Tuesday. But firstly, certainly for the Americans, it's not just almost midweek, it's like the beginning of a whole new era. We think, or they think, anyway. Well, whichever way it is, you will have a new president in the USA, even though it's possible one of the two who could be the new president was the old president before, if that makes any sense to you. Certainly that issue of the USA, the US election, is a major theme of the show, only because, and I will say this, I was asked downstairs, come on, who do you want to win? And I said, honestly speaking, the way I see it, both of them, reflect an institution that I think has great hegemony over many other countries of the world. So I really don't support either or, because they simply have to plug into a system. But should we be concerned about it? I think we should, because, to repeat an oft-repeated phrase, when the USA sneezes, we all catch a cold, so we best know who's going to give us a cold one way or the other. And maybe that's the point that I'll ask you, just your one word. So the US election starts today. It's early morning in the USA, we know that. But I want to know who's going to win, because, you don't know that and I don't know that, okay? But give me one word, just one word for you that best describes your emotions towards the U.S. election. Could it be great? Could it be indifferent? Could it be don't care? Could it be anger, hope, whatever? One word that best describes your emotions regarding the U.S. election. Now, to do that, you can WhatsApp right away in text 0614 104 107. You can call in 086 000 2032. In fact, I said WhatsApp. You can also send us a voice note via WhatsApp. You should know the numbers now, particularly because I know so many of you listen every single day here to the National Pulse. But you also have the option to tweet, okay? So on the X platform, tweet us with your one word, and do the same thing on the SAFM Radio Facebook pages as well. So basically, we've got all the bases covered. Now, we will get to that issue of the U.S. election just now. Looking forward to that conversation pretty shortly. However, linked to the United States is this, which is, when I say this, I'm referring to the goings-on between the USA and Cuba. So, do you know that Cuba's been affected by an economic, commercial and financial embargo, blockade, for a long time? And just a few days ago, there was another U.S. General Assembly vote on that issue to lift the blockade completely. And the numbers were 187 for it, to lift it, 2 against, 1 abstention, the 2 against Israel and the USA. So it's an ongoing story. Let's try and understand what the issue is, because that's a good example of the impact of the USA on what we do. And what I mean by that is, that veto at the UN General Assembly, right? So Mrs. Lauren Louis is with me, diplomatic attaché for the press and cultural affairs of the Embassy of Cuba in South Africa. Appreciate your time, Mrs. Louis. Thanks for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. It's our pleasure to stay tuned today to speak about the blockade on Cuba. Thank you for the invitation.
I must tell you, if I ask somebody about the blockade, many people would say, what are you talking about? It's almost like a forgotten story. Like, didn't that get resolved a long time ago when Barack Obama somehow came together with Castro's Cuba and all that got sorted out? But you're saying, no, it hasn't, right?
Exactly, it hasn't. At that time, the former President Barack Obama only relieved some of the measures that compose the policy of the blockade, because it's not just one measure. It's a system of measures, a complex system of measures, well designed in order to suffocate the Cuban economy, in order to make the Cuban people suffer, only because we want to stay an independent and sovereign country. So no, it hasn't been forgotten. It's not an issue that has been solved.
And what is the nature of this blockade? Just tell us about it. What does it mean?
Well, the blockade was imposed on Cuba in 1962. At that time, it was only a policy that would prevent the normal amount of trade between the United States and Cuba. But when the years started to pass by, other administrations from the United States started to implement new measures to the blockade. So instead of being just one measure, it started to become a whole policy of measures aimed at trying to overthrow the Cuban Revolution. And besides that, it measured to prevent the trade between Cuba and the United States. They implemented the Torricelli Law, which prevents also the trade of Cuba with other countries, the Helms-Burton Law. These measures started to bring to the blockade an extraterritorial policy. It began to affect also the relations of Cuba with other countries. That is why more than an embargo, we believe the blockade is an economic war against Cuba.
Okay, you believe that's the case. Now, I understand it was a UN General Assembly vote a few days ago. And again, overwhelmingly, big support for Cuba in terms of the lifting of the blockade, but 2 significant opposition votes. One of them, a member of the Security Council, right? I'm talking about the USA. How important, what does that do for you now that you've heard this latest round of voting? Again, in your favor, but not good enough, ultimately.
Well, it's not good enough because, unfortunately, the resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly are not binding like the ones that they approve at the UN Security Council. But it is something good for Cuba. It's a resounding victory because it demonstrates, it proves the United States is isolated in this policy of blockade against Cuba. As you may have seen, a lot of countries in their interventions demanded the end of the blockade and also the removal of Cuba from the United States sponsors of terrorism list, which is also one of the other measures that make up the.
Okay, do we still have you there? We have just lost. Okay, we've just lost Lauren Louis just for a moment. Let's try and reconnect with her. So, your one word to describe the U.S. Election, and I mean your sense of emotionally, what does it mean for you? When I say, hey, you heard about it? There's a U.S. election today. You think what? Just one word. Message us, text us, WhatsApp, all of that, and on social media too. We have Lauren Louis once again back with us, right? So we were talking about the counter-argument that, in fact, the USA push for the blockade has been around for over half a century now because Cuba were accused, and they felt convinced that you were sponsors of terrorism. How do you defend that position all these years later?
Well, I'm only going to say that Cuba sends doctors wherever they need it, in any country that need it. So I don't know how a country that sends doctors to support other countries' peoples can sponsor terrorism.
But that is possible. You could have an ambivalent position where you send doctors to one country and you actually.
No, that's.
But I'm just saying it is possible. You know, it's not impossible to do that. I'm not saying you did, but it's not impossible to be ambivalent and ambiguous around where you do one thing and you do another thing at the same time.
Well, on the other hand, Cuba is a developing country, so I don't know where we would get the resources to sponsor terrorism. We are struggling because of the blockade that is being imposed upon us for more than 60 years. So a blockade that prevents us from getting all the resources, all the technologies that we need, a blockade that has caused material damages to Cuba estimated at more than $5 billion. So how a country with living under such conditions could sponsor terrorism is something that is completely hilarious.
Okay, how then from a diplomatic point of view, so whether you agree or you don't agree, the fact is certainly the USA doesn't agree with you and they believe that you do sponsor terrorism, and unless you get that change from them, either at General Assembly level or at the Security Council, that blockade will not be lifted. So part of this would be to be able to diplomatically reach out to the USA to get that overturned. Where are you on that journey?
Well, the diplomatic relations between our countries are still in force. We haven't, after we reestablished the relations in 2014, we haven't stopped, and the diplomatic channel is working. And actually, the U.S. has some sort of contradiction with the fact that Cuba is sponsoring terrorism, because this year, in the list of states that don't fully cooperate with the United States efforts to end terrorism, Cuba was not listed. So there is no real argument to keep Cuba in that list.
Okay, but having said that, I mean, you'd want to have this turned around. One thing is talking to each other, but the other is to have the blockade turned around. Now, you have a U.S. election, well, started today. Does it matter to you who wins through, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
Well, we believe that each country has their self-determination, and we don't interfere in other countries' affairs. We will see who wins, and we will see whoever wins how they behave towards Cuba, and we will continue with the diplomatic channel that is established between both countries. And we hope that whoever wins starts to check and review the policy towards Cuba in order to have better relations.
I understand that, but just to be clear, at this point in time, Donald Trump, you know him because he actually led the USA already once before. Kamala Harris is new, but I mean, she served as a deputy president of that country. So you would have a sense of their current view around Cuba. How much do you know about what they think if they get into power, and which way they will go with the Cuban issue?
We will have to see that, because one thing that we have seen throughout the world is that sometimes people say things that they don't fulfill later. So we will have to wait then.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. We will have to wait. It's a key point, and waiting has been waiting for a long, long time regarding Cuba. Can you believe it? That blockade 60 years ago, it was imposed. Well, it still exists. economic blockade of sorts, right? That's Lauren Louis, the diplomatic attaché for the press and cultural affairs of the Embassy of Cuba in South Africa. What do you make of that conversation? Come on, let's get your reaction ASAP. You can connect live 086 0002032, WhatsApp 0614 104 107, and don't forget, while you're at it, text or voice note your one word for you that best describes the U.S. election to you. What does it really mean to you? Let's get your word. And should I tell you, Tebe Ikalafeng comes up around 4:20, I think. No, 4 maybe, 5 minutes extra. We'll talk about Tebe Ikalafeng, not so much the brand specialist, but Tebe Ikalafeng, the traveller.
Festive season is around the corner. And like most, Paul, I don't sweat going home because I have a Nedbank Just Invest account. So I'll be up this festive season. No borrowing, guys. Even you, Mr. Voiceman.
Must be nice to be you, Mabel. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.5% interest. Open yours via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Visit nedbank.co.za for more info.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000 with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
All right, what's your one word that you'd like to use to describe the U.S. election to you, what it means for you emotionally? Someone saying frustrating. Well, that's your thoughts. Let's get the views of Anita Powell, who's the Voice of America's White House correspondent. Anita, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us, to the National Pulse here on U.S. Election Day.
Good morning from the White House, Ashraf, and I'm so glad you asked that question because my word is not a word so much as a punctuation. It's a question mark.
Go ahead and tell us.
It's a question mark. That's my word. A big, fat question mark. Because we don't know. The margins are very tight. And here at the White House, it's quite quiet this morning. This is the calm eye in the middle of the political hurricane. But we don't know who's going to win. We know the margins are tight. And we're going to be waiting and seeing for the rest of the day today.
Okay. And your question mark, which is your one word, right? Is that because you don't know the result of the election or you don't know the impact? Because you see, for many of us in South Africa, our one word would be, what does it mean to us, right? So would that be the same for you?
Right. I would agree with that. We don't know the result and we don't know the impact. I mean, we can guess from what the candidates have said about their policies vis-a-vis Africa. I think it's fair to say that two of the main concerns for the African continent, those being the AGOA program and PEPFAR, those are in the hands of Congress, not the president. So those are going to fare as well as expected ordinarily. But, I mean, obviously, it's going to be a very different presidency under Donald Trump than under Kamala Harris. So we will wait and see. What I will tell you is that, you know, today on the first day of general voting, we've seen a record number of early voters at polls that have opened in Georgia and North Carolina. Those are two of the important states that are likely to come in first, and that will give us an indication. But we don't expect to know tonight who the next president of the United States is going to be, hence the question mark.
When would you likely know? Not so much officially, but in terms of trends, as per the experts who can call an election sometimes within 5 hours of voting booths closing.
I want to be really cautious about this, but I think that it comes down to the 7 swing states, and the most important of those is the swing state of Pennsylvania, which has 19 electoral votes. We don't have time this afternoon to explain the entire electoral college system, but suffice to say that Pennsylvania is a big prize, and we're not going to know those results probably not tonight, maybe in coming days.
Well, I mean,
So
we
that's
touched on it yesterday in terms of the Electoral College reflects the numbers of members from that state into a senator. And I think the key part there is that the Electoral College, maybe call it seats for want of a better word, is more important than the popular vote. So you can have more votes. And in fact, it's happened a few times recently, right? More votes for the entire country, but less Electoral College votes means that you actually lose an election.
Exactly. And we've seen that split before in previous elections, where one candidate got more of the popular vote than the Electoral College. The Electoral College was intended by the founders to kind of level it out for smaller states, such that they don't get trounced by the opinions of larger states. So it basically effectively lets smaller states punch above their weight a little bit in this federal system that we have.
But in the last, so I mean, effectively your time would be something like what, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe slightly later, depending on where you are. I think East Coast or West Coast would be even earlier in the morning, right? Yes. What happened last night? I mean, the last few hours before voting actually started in terms of the all-important final pitch from the two contenders.
Right. It was a race to the finish line. We saw both Trump and Harris zero in on, as I said, this key state of Pennsylvania. What I did think was interesting is that she brought a slightly more optimistic note than he did, and she did not name check him yesterday. She spent a lot of this campaign talking about how she is different from Donald Trump, and yesterday she called him only that guy. From Trump, we heard a lot of similar bluster. A lot of his pronouncements that he's echoed in the past about his hopes for the presidency. But both of them made this fevered pitch to the American voter, hoping that those few undecided voters who don't know who they're going to pull the lever for are going to choose them today.
And your thoughts when they finally vote, right? What do they decide on? I'm talking of the votes now. What are the key factors for them that determines whether they're going to go the Trump route or the Kamala Harris? Is it simply historical attachment to red or blue, or are there so many other factors that come into play?
There are a lot of factors. The 4 I would identify in this election are pretty simple. One is, number one, how you feel about Donald Trump. I don't know if it's possible for somebody to feel ambivalent or neutral about Donald Trump. So that's number one. Number 2 is how you feel about the prospect of the first female president of color of the United States. Again, that is a divisive issue for some Americans. Number 3 is how you feel about reproductive rights and access to abortion, which for many states is on the ballot this time, but also is a key point in these campaigns, with Harris really campaigning on protecting reproductive rights. And number 4, this is kind of the wild card, is how American voters feel on the situation in the Middle East. We've seen a swell of opposition to the Biden administration in Michigan, which is a state with many Arab Americans, because they feel that the Biden administration is being too supportive of Israel. And that is likely to affect the vote. When we have margins that are this slim, as polls have indicated, every single vote counts, especially when it comes to some of these battleground states. So those are the main 4 elements as I see them. Mm-hmm. But of course, this is a huge country, a pluralist society. That's what makes America so interesting. It's such a diverse country. So is a voter in rural South Dakota and a voter in urban Baltimore going to be thinking about these things the same? No. And that is the beauty of America, and it's also perplexing because we're selecting one person to represent all of us.
Absolutely, I think it's a good point. Now, having said that, you spoke about policy, and I hear that part, but if we focus on personality, here's 2 interesting things. One is, how much value do people put in seeing how Kamala Harris delivered or did not deliver as the deputy president. So she's already got some track record of what she can and can't do, and equally so, how much of a track record has Donald Trump showed us when he was the president. So, for example, when he talks about I want to make America great again, and he said it again, it's the same line he's used at the previous election, right? I would have thought, well, did he not succeed in making them great already? So that's my point. How much of attachment do they attach to, hey, both have a track record and we can see whether they've delivered when they were in positions of leadership or not?
I think this is highly subjective, but I think you're right. A lot of Americans are basing their decision on that. One of the arguments coming from the Trump camp about Harris is, if you were going to do all of these great things, why didn't you do them when you were vice president? Which is the same argument that's been leveled against Trump. If you're going to do all these things, you had 4 years as president, why didn't you do them then? But, these arguments really do come down to... this is a personality contest as much as it is a political contest in a lot of ways. That's definitely part of the argument, but you could level that at both characters in this fascinating play that we're watching unfold today.
Well, it's interesting you say it is a personality contest, which then almost puts the entire longer debate about policies and going through all of that with the tooth comb just aside, because ultimately it's a gut feeling about who you like on the day. I can tell you now that I was asked as well, who would I be voting for if I had the chance? And I said no, because I really think they're an extension of a system that I don't quite like, but clearly I'm not in a position where I have to vote. Anyway, you can. Anita Powell, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. And I have a sense we'll talk again after the election results come out, and we'll see what happens after that.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Perfect. There we are. Fascinating conversation with Anita Powell, who's the White House correspondent for The Voice of America. At one stage, long before TV channels came about, and you wanted to get American news, that's the only place you could hear it. Well, the good news, you can still hear it, by the way. But of course, you're also connected here to the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines. It's 3:30. Here's Daneo Matao.
Thank you, Ashraf. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 3:30. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says the loss of data that was experienced at the Government Printing Works GPW in February 2021 reaffirms the importance of cybersecurity. Schreiber made his opening remarks where the GPW appeared before Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. In other news, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, says his department has created what he calls an infrastructure pipeline to the value of more than 60 billion rand. And Sudanese pro-democracy activists are reporting that 10 civilians have been killed by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in Al Jazeera state. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash reported after Geldnys interchange. In KZN, the N2 has road surface damage reported just west of Zolgowini, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Cromwell Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the N2 in Somerset West is queuing at Onverwacht Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Khapele.
Right, to in the midst of a U.S. election, it's still South Africa's sport, and you are the minister after all. Let's talk about women's cricket.
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, the Proteas women are set to host a series of high-profile fixtures against top opponents, including India, Australia, Pakistan, and the West Indies. South Africa will also embark on challenging tours to England, New Zealand, Bangladesh, and Zimbabwe. Now, this is for the Women's Future Tours Program 2025 to 2029 cycle, which will give the women's national team more competitive opportunities and promote the game locally and internationally. Now, the new cycle will feature more than 400 matches, including big events such as World Cups. And in domestic cricket, there's a 4-day CSA series action. DP World Lions facing Momentum Multiplied Titans. The last time I checked, it was T, and Lions are sitting on 165 for 2 after 58 overs. Then in a rugby, an IPL-style rugby tournament is set to kick off in the USA in 2026, and organizers are reportedly eyeing several big-name players, including Springboks from all over the world. It's believed that several player agents in South Africa have already signed confidential agreements, and speculation suggests that around 280 men and 140 women will be recruited for the league, with potential starting salaries reaching up to 15.8 million rand. Whether it's a good idea or not, I guess only time will tell. In football, Orlando Pirates will look to claim their 7th consecutive Betway Premiership win when they lock horns with the Richards Bay at Orlando Stadium this evening. The Sea Robbers have had an impressive start to the season and are currently top of the league table with 18 points, having won all 6 of their opening matches. Richards Bay, on the other hand, are currently in 12th place in the Premiership, having managed to collect just 5 points from 6 matches. The KZN side will also be eager to avoid defeat, having already lost to the Buccaneers at the Kingswell Tennis Stadium this season. And according to Coach Truta, he believes that Pirates are a genuine title contender for the season.
With the loss against Polokwane from Sundowns, it put us right in there, either challenges or genuine contenders about dethroning Sundowns. So the belief is there. It's going to be tough in terms of quality, in terms of being away from them, in terms of the fatigue, in terms of the red card, in terms of the injuries. We made no mistake about it. But something about the youngsters, they welcome this challenge, and once you put this in front of the youngster, you either swim, sink or swim. But in this case, they say today that they are brave, and that's what we like. There's lots of energy and hard work. You can't fault it, and you can go with that.
Well, kickoff is at 7:30. There's also some other action in terms of the Champions League. AC Milan visit Real Madrid tonight for a match among the 2 most decorated clubs in the tournament's history. It will be a clash of 12th and 25th place teams after 3 of the 8 rounds of the revamped tournament. The new format sends only top 8 teams directly to the round of 16 in January, and teams that finish number 9 to 16 are seeded in the knockout playoffs round in February against teams that are ranked 17th to 24th, while the winners of those 2-leg encounters advance to the round of 16 in March. Other selected fixtures: Liverpool host Leverkusen, Manchester City away to Sporting with kickoff around 10 p.m. The Neymar will miss at least 2 weeks training after suffering a muscle problem in his second game back from Al Hilal from a long-term injury. The Brazilian superstar lasted just 26 minutes as a second-half substitute before limping off with an apparent right hamstring strain in yesterday's game. Neymar, who moved from Paris Saint-Germain in a lucrative contract in 2023, was out for more than a year until last month following a right knee surgery, which is very worrying, the fact that he's got all these injuries. He just came back and now he has another injury.
He hasn't had a clear run. And
He
you know,
hasn't.
some of the great players in the world, if you have, in fact, possibly, they talk about Ronaldo and Messi as probably the greatest footballers of all time. One can be nostalgic, you talk about Pelé and others before that, or Maradona, but the one player that effectively got away, although he's won a World Cup, is the other Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, that I think he was called a phenomenon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And injuries is basically what cost him. He was just on another level.
Yeah, and for a player like Neymar, who I thought had a lot of potential to being on that level of Ronaldo and the Messis of this world, unfortunately with all these injuries.
And that's why he's not spoken about in the same breath, clearly not. Yeah. Okay. Sadly so, yeah.
That's it from my
By the way,
side.
you must tell me later on whether you agree with these new European formats, but not now. Next bulletin, right? Give me your thoughts about it. More sports.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one Outsurance client did about it.
I'm Annie. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to buy an Outsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tegendal, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Hey, what's up? Unomfundo Yegani, real name, no gimmicks, and Kolonkolobasi, the Queen Card. Don't forget to cash back to the city this Saturday at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1. And Gege Basko on the dog. Mix.
For all the hip-hop heads, check out the Back to the City special, Saturday 9 November at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, one word to describe what the U.S. elections means to you. So Jack Pagati is saying globetrotting, the U.S. election news travels to every part of the world and affects every part of the world. Ayanda saying good afternoon, listening from Hout Bay, beautiful part of the world, I can tell you now. Mokhali saying, should Trump win this election? AGOA is gone. Well, we shall see about that. And there's a couple of more one-worders, which I really appreciate. Endow Tribe saying one word to describe how I feel about the U.S. elections, skeptical. And there's more, of course, right? In fact, there's a couple more that I want to just pick up on. Let me just get it. By the way, Tere Karafeng, we'll get him to join us. He's the traveller, and we'll find out why pretty shortly. But let's get to some of your comments, staying with the one word.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. My one word to describe my emotions with regard to U.S. elections is curious. Thank you. Ilima Kobela, Rotterdam.
Okay, he's curious. Well, I'm also curious if that's the case. I mean, I do agree with you there.
Good day, Mr. Ashraf. This is Kepas here from PE. My one word for the U.S. elections is whatever. Whatever, my brother.
And you said it twice, just for emphasis. Whatever. Okay, I got that. Here's some other comment on the U.S.
Good day, Ashraf. It's Bright. My wish in USA is that both Harris and Trump lose, both of them. Yeah, that is my wish. But I know it's not possible. But that's what I wish.
Okay, well, I hear you. If both losers, I wonder who's going to win or who would you want to win? Here's another comment on the U.S. election.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, when it comes to the American election, I'm vouching for Donald Trump, irregardless of him calling us names as South Africans, or he calling our country something else, but I'm in support of him because I know him winning, it will be the end of Russia and Ukraine war. And yeah, that's what I want to see, Donald Trump winning.
So he's going to sort out that war. I wonder what's he going to say about what will he say about Israel and Palestine, but what will he say about South Africa? He wasn't very complimentary about our country, just so that you know.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, when it comes to...
Right, I think we've done that. We've just done that one. Let me get another one, then we'll get to some of the callers too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. To us as South African, I don't think there is a difference between the Trump and Harris. They're all the same. They will be drafted into one system, and they can say whatever, America first, whatever, but they are all the same. they will be drafted into a system. America is a system, so it won't be different. So it's like that. I don't think much of American election.
Okay, many will say the same. It's very much the same. Let's get one last caller for now because Tebe Kalafeng's about to walk into studio. Mike in Middleburg, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for taking my call. Ashraf, they say never say never. I never thought I would vouch for Donald Trump of the Republicans, given their history of supporting apartheid previously. But now, I wish Trump all of the best because of the stupid war sponsored by America in Ukraine versus Russia. But then, in fact, it's not Ukraine versus Russia, it's NATO versus Russia, as well as the weapons he's supplying to Israel to kill innocent.
Are you saying Trump's policies therefore are better than the Democrats like Kamala Harris?
At least Trump condemned the killing of innocent women and children in Gaza. At least he condemned them, and then Biden and Kamala Harris, they are giving standing ovation to Netanyahu.
Okay, got that. I'll tell you what, some may say, as per the chat I had with Anita Powell earlier on, it's very much an election of not so much of policies, but personalities. Just who do you just feel you can connect with is as low as that. Tebe Kalafeng, well, he's a bit of a personality. We'll get him into studio right after this.
Whatever you need for a personal loan, choose a bank that's best for your loans. Nedbank offers loans of up to 400,000 Rand at the best possible fixed interest rates. And there's more. Open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account and you could enjoy 200 Rand cash back every month for the duration of your loan term. That's up to 14,400 Rand cash back. Visit nedbank.co.za to apply for your tailored personal loan. See money differently. Nedbank. We are licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Hammers have a mammoth task to find a path to the top half. They target maximum points against the Toffees.
Bundled in by Sensio Somerville, his first West Ham United goal.
Meanwhile, the Toffees have the same predicament. They want out of the bottom half as soon as possible.
It's a cross goal and it's netted by Beto, and Everton have equalised 4 minutes into
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between West Ham United FC and Everton FC on Saturday 9 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, lots of people giving their one word to describe, internally what the US election means to them. Not to the Americans, to you, okay? So come forth with your one word and you can text us. Easiest way, 0614-104-107. Others are doing it via social media. Keep it going, Twitter or on Facebook as well. So Tebe Kalafeng with us. Normally I talk about him as this brand leadership champion or brand champion. In fact, I'm talking about him as a man who's been rebranded. He's going to argue with me about that. He's called The Traveller, and he'll tell us why. Tebe, good chatting to you, and thanks for coming into the studio.
Thank you so much. I'm not Tebe Kalafeng. I'm the best-selling author of the #1 book in the country, The Traveller, Crossing Borders and Connecting Africa, sold out in 7 days. Now going to reprint. Ashraf, please recognize me.
The only thing I can recognize with you is I come to your book launch, and I'm very disappointed because I came late.
Yes.
As I told you, I'd come after the show here, and I mean, okay, there's not 5 lanes of people sitting 5 rows. There's like 40 rows or 50 rows.
600-700 people.
So that's my disappointment. Like,
I was very disappointed
myself. How did I
myself.
cope with 700 people coming to your book launch?
Well, the publisher and the booksellers, exclusive, and everybody who attended, says it was the biggest book launch in 30 years since Mandela's long walk to freedom.
Oh my goodness!
They said it was probably the most. Well, it was interesting. Some friends said to me it wasn't supposed to be there; it was supposed to be in the stadium. because I think there's such an.
What is it? Fill up? Who had that thing fill up the stadium? What was
fill up the mall.
Yeah,
fill up the whole mall.
Yeah. So anyway, I was right at the back. Leanne Meadows will tell you that we were right at the back.
You're in the bleachers. I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah, well, but it's a triple.
There were some people who were in the executive suites. Where were you?
I told you I was late, so you couldn't. I mean, how many people can you reserve for the executive suite? But anyway, I mean, that's the good news, right? That is phenomenal. And to confirm what you bragged about yourself, is it number one now?
It is the number one best-selling book in the country. So if you go to Exclusive, it is number one by far across the country. It is sold out of their warehouse. There's a few books around some stores in the country, but when it comes to Johannesburg, there's lots of books sold out.
Okay.
The book is going to reprint. Within 7 days of the launch, the book had to go to reprint. Normally they print enough books to last a year. We did our year in 7 days. But I come from Kimberley, city of diamonds. I've been number one my whole life. The book had to be number one. And the most important thing about the book is not because of my ego, because the proceeds of the book, all the royalties of the book, are going towards a scholarship for learners who are learning how to build great African brands.
I want to touch on that, but for now, your confidence is even greater than Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I mean,
well,
understandably so. Because you are number one. They're still vying for number one, or they're trying to.
Well, I mean, I was disappointed. I went to Exclusive in Nicol Way. They don't have one single book left. So, there's the rankings on the wall. There's 1 to 20. Number one is empty. There's not even a book to fill number one. And I told them what we're going to do now. So I put one dummy copy, one of my own copies.
At least, yeah.
At least we have something. And I told them I'm very disappointed that they are not selling hard enough, because we need to exceed number one.
Well, there we are. Okay, let's get to your scholarship part of it now. So, proceeds will go to?
So, as you know from our Brand Africa study of the last 15 years, only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are made in Africa. So if we are going to transform the continent, we need to, and if we're going to open up the continent, the borders, and with the Africa Free Trade Continental Area, which aims to move intra-Africa trade from 15% to 50% by 2030. If we're going to do that, we need to catalyze entrepreneurship. We need to catalyze made in Africa brands. We need to open up the markets for African brands. So recognizing that only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are African, we're an 80% opportunity. So we need to build the capacity, we need to build the interest and the excitement around African brands. So the proceeds of the book, all 100% of the royalties, plus seed money that I'm putting down, are all pledged towards scholarships, towards learners who are in the last mile of studies towards branding and marketing.
And so that's synonymous with you and the work that you've done. I mean, your legacy, absolutely. And building a new legacy for the continent.
Indeed, because the most important thing, I think it's easy to be a millionaire or billionaire, but it's harder to have a billion impact. My job is not to be rich, but it's to enrich those who are coming after us. Because at the end of our lives, we're not going to be measured by how much money we made, but we're going to be measured by how many lives we changed. And if the change is great across the continent, then I would have done my bit for society and for Africa.
Well, at this point in time, if you've stood for election for the African continent, you'll probably win that anyway, right? So let's talk about some aspects of the book. Not through the whole thing, but there are a few things that I think are worth talking about as part of a thought leader conversation. So your chapters are very small, which is nice, because that means you can read 4 pages at a time, and you can be done while the coffee's, and the milk is boiling or water's boiling. Absolutely, right?
Indeed. Remember, it's reflections. It's a memoir.
Yeah,
so I'm writing on reflections on different ideas and small chapters of things. And I wanted you to be able to read and not have to come back. This is not a soap opera. It's not a series. You can read different anecdotes of my experiences traveling from Kimberley, where I was born and raised, to the top of Kilimanjaro, from Cape to Cairo, to every continent in the world, and to all adventures and experiences across the continent.
I'm going to come to you for advice when I need to write my book, finally, right. Having said that, one of the chapters is called Africa is Not Poor. Explain.
And that is a short part of a quote by Sirleaf Ellen Johnson,
Liberia,
for the first female president in Africa of Liberia, and he said Africa is not poor; it is just poorly led. And part of what I was trying to look at in the chapter is to really show, to demonstrate that some of the challenges of this continent that we have seen, the challenges are self-made. That if we can transform the continent, if we can transform the leadership and inspire the leadership, the next generation of leadership in this continent, we'll be able to transform the continent. Now, if you look at some of the challenges of this continent, whether it's challenges or perceptions around corruption, or perception around crime, or perceptions about poverty, about all those are all self-made.
So I was going to ask you, is our poor leadership, how much of that is internal or externally influenced?
We must take accountability and responsibility for the state of Africa. We cannot blame colonialism and apartheid anymore for the problems. They have contributed tremendously to the state of affairs. But Kwame Nkrumah said in 1963, we face neither east nor west, we must face forward. We need to have an agenda to transform the continent. And if you look at 1963 on the 24th of May, the day before the formation of the OE, Organization of African Unity, there was a 10-point plan on how to transform the continent, which had to do with a common citizenship, common communication, common monetary, common a system of defense. Those are some of the principles which were discussed then. 50 years later, 2013, I was in Ethiopia for the 50th anniversary of the African Union. What were our African leaders talking about? They were talking now about Agenda 2063. Rehashing the same things Kwame Nkrumah had spoken about. And they were doing what I like to say, and I say in the book, they are kicking the can so far into the future because none of them and none of us will be alive in 50 years' time. And none of us will be able to hold anybody accountable.
So quickly, how do we change that? Like actively, how do we change it?
From where I come from, I always believe what Mother Teresa said, we must do what we can with what we have where we are. Each and every one of us has got a responsibility to contribute to a better Africa. It's probably what JFK said in 1961. Ask not what your country or the continent can do for you. Ask what you can do for the continent. So what we expect here, we expect Ashraf Garda to tell us how he's going to change the narrative of the continent through how he broadcasts, the content of his broadcast. And we ask the same of the SABC. We ask the same, instead of being a purveyor or a champion or rather continuing the negative speak that we hear from the rest of the world about us, you can contribute there.
Okay.
Tebe Galafin from branding is us to contribute from a branding perspective. That's what I'm doing with the scholarship. That's what I'm doing with my Africa Brandship Academy. That's what I'm doing with the Brand Africa Foundation.
And I want to know about that.
Because part of what I'm doing with that is to say, from my area of expertise, which is branding, how can I contribute to a different Africa, the Africa that we deserve?
Okay, we've got 4 minutes to go. I'm going to rush this thing. Interesting, you use the phrase, the state of Africa, which gets me thinking about, is Africa seen as one state? You saying Africa is not a country.
Well, Africa is over 54 countries, all at different levels of development, over 2,000 languages, multitudes of cultures. But we do have a common thread across a continent. We do have a common thread of a continent that is very creative, a continent that is very welcoming, hospitable, a continent that is very entrepreneurial, and a continent that is very innovative. That's the common thread.
So I would also see it as one big continent?
Well, that's the common theme of the thread around the continent. You'll find it in every African country. What we shouldn't do, we don't have to promote the idea that it is a country, but we are a people. We need to have a vision for the continent, and we need to play it from where we are. So if you're Rwanda said, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to contribute to the African story through our creativity, our innovativeness, our hospitality, and all those. We will be the capital of innovation. Or the innovation. We'll be the capital of, or rather, we'll be the capital of all consequential African meetings.
So are you saying that when others see it as, and we play up the fact that we're one continent, one people, I understand the threat part, but that we're all exactly the same, you're saying that's counterproductive because people on the outside then perceive everything that happens in Egypt as in the same thing happens in South Africa.
So what I'm saying is that I say we are a people who belong to a continent that makes up 1.3 billion, over $3 trillion economy. I'm saying that we are that people. But what I'm saying is the beauty about Africa is the diversity of Africa. And we are united in many ways in our diversity. And that's what unites us.
Okay.
But the one common thread around that unity is those aspects that I spoke about, creativity, about innovation.
You have been to every single African country.
I've been to every single one of the 54 countries according to the United Nations, 55 according to the African Union, 60 according to myself, because what I've also done, I've also gone to La Réunion, I've gone to Mayotte, I've gone to Canary Islands, I've gone to St. Helena. Collectively, there's 60 countries. Those other countries, Europe is still holding onto them. England is still holding on to Selena. Spain onto Canary Islands. French into La Réunion and Mayotte. I don't know why they're holding on to countries which are within the African range and geography, and they call them departments of Europe.
I certainly know
it is an arrogant and an out of touch way to look at our continent.
Quickly, give me. There's a specific reason why you made an intention to visit every one of those countries, and link that to what you call Brand Africa.
I wanted to, and as an individual, I wanted to be an informed, a credible, and an authentic ambassador of the continent. I didn't want to speak about Africa, quote unquote, collectively, where through a South African lens. I wanted to speak with I wanted to have a lived experience of what it means when I say African. And Kwame Nkrumah, or rather Fela Kuti said, the great Nigerian Afrobeat star, said, I must identify with Africa, then I'll have an identity. But I needed to know what I'm identifying with. I needed to ensure that when I speak about our continent, I speak with credibility. Because a lot of times when people, the story of Africa is written by non-Africans. So when you look at old books, even the one by Meredith, Martin Meredith, called The State of Africa, and all those books, all of them are not written by Africans. So I wanted to write the story of Africa from my own lens as an African.
And in doing that, and you got just quickly 15 seconds about that, you've also then pushing what you call African brands versus other brands. Quick story on that.
Because as an African, I've learned one thing, or rather as a marketer, I've learned one thing, or as a citizen or a person, I've learned one thing, that I'm not an expert in everything, but I'm an expert in Africa and branding. So I know through the lens of brands that brands of a country, of a continent, become the vector of the image of that country, and that's how I'm driving the brands. Because when we think about America, we know America through its brands. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all those. We know Europe similarly. We now know China. That's how China is rising, because they're creating their own super brands, and that's how America is
build the super brands.
So the great brands become the vector of the image we have of the continent. If we build a great MT and a great Dangote, a great Ethiopian Airlines, people view Africa as creative, as innovative, and independent. Agenda 2063 by the African Union is about creating an independent, integrated, and peaceful continent. We're never going to be independent, prosperous, and independent continent until we own our own.
That's where we can leave it. I've got a choice. We're on to news already. Either I can ask you about lunch with Phil, which I can't do, but I'm going to ask you to read this because I can't read this. So I'll give you 15 seconds to read that.
It's going to be amazing for me to decode my own writing. I wrote here, Ashraf, you've been part of my consequential journeys. You're a brother, a friend, and a supporter. Thank you for being on my side.
Well, I'm glad you could decode all of that. Tebe Kalafeng, great chatting to you. Your time is up here, but in reality, your time is now. You know exactly what I mean.
Well, but as an African, my time has always been my own.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great chatting to you. Get the book. It's called The Traveller. We'll post it up on social media as well. Let's get the news now. It's just called 4 o'clock with Taneo.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. Schreiber speaks on the need to prioritize cyber security, and Sudan paramilitaries kill 10 civilians. A very good afternoon. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says the loss of data that was experienced at the Government Printing Works GPW in February 2021 reaffirms the importance of cybersecurity. Schreiber made his opening remarks where the GPW appeared before Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. The entity briefed the committee on the findings and recommendations in the report of a ministerial review panel which investigated the incident caused by a hardware failure that led to the loss of data. Schreiber explains.
It was really a very difficult moment because it had an impact across the organization. What stands out about this event is the centrality, once again, of technology in how modern society operates. And if you don't have the level of technology and cybersecurity that you require to function, then it has cross-cutting and cascading effects.
Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson says the main vision of the 7th administration is to turn the country into a construction site. Government is set to work on 3 focus areas as part of creating permanent employment through the revitalization of the construction industry. McPherson was speaking at the inaugural meeting of the Public Works and Infrastructure MECs from all 9 provinces.
At the departmental strategic planning session last month, I emphasized that we will achieve our goal of becoming a delivery unit for the economy by focusing on 3 areas in the years ahead. Firstly, by turning South Africa into a construction site. Secondly, by using public assets for public good. And thirdly, by reforming the EPWP program to serve as a bridge to permanent employment.
In other news, the AfriForum says the lobby group invited all political parties opposed to the Basic Education Law Amendment Act BELA to join in their march today. Scores of AfriForum and Solidarity members descended to the Voortrekker Monument in Pretoria to oppose the BELA Act. Both civil organization groups say that clauses 4 and 5 of the BELA Act take away the right of school governing bodies to make important decisions about admissions and language. AfriForum's Kali Krill says they wanted a broad representation of parties in the Government of National Unity to receive their memorandum.
Firstly, we invited the presidency and we invited all ministers that oppose BELA. We also invited the education department, and the presidency then indicated that Minister McKenzie would accept it on his behalf. So it was actually, we wanted a broad representation of the Government of National Unity, and both the Freedom Front and DA and the PA are members of the Government of National Unity.
We'll move to KZN now, where the N2 has been closed to traffic near the Joiner Road on-ramp near Ispingo in the south of Durban. This follows the collapse of the bridge on the southbound carriageway. Motorists have been urged to use alternative routes. Sunrise Trevor Zumane says they've dispatched a team of engineers to assess the extent of the damage.
I've brought up structural engineers to do the assessment so that we can see a way forward, whether it's really what we are suspecting or whether it's a bigger problem all the way to the foundation. At the moment, it's a bit premature because there could be 2 scenarios. It's either the pier itself from the foundation has settled, which is a bigger problem, which will take longer to fix. But if it's just the bearings, it's a quicker fix, but still it will take some science into it.
Lastly, we go into the continent where Sudanese pro-democracy activists are reporting that 10 civilians have been killed by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF in Al Jazeera state. The UN says escalating violence by the RSF has displaced over 130,000 people since late October. The BBC's Richard Kagoa has the details.
The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Coordinator says many have fled to neighboring states, including children with gunshot wounds. A recent UN report on Al Jazeera highlights concerns from NGOs over arbitrary arrests and the detention of children. There are also reports of sexual violence against girls, with some unverified cases indicating victims may have taken their own lives. Humanitarian groups are calling for protection of civilians amid a month-long surge in violence that has left about 200 people dead. Al Jazeera is becoming a key battleground between the RSF and the Sudanese army.
Recapping the top story this hour, Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says the loss of data that was experienced at the Government Printing Works GPW in February 2021 reaffirms the importance of cybersecurity. Schreiber made his opening remarks where the GPW appeared before Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. Headlines at 4:30 for SFM News. I am Dinoma Daun.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Cape Town City to look to Lebo Manyama for spark in attack. Final MotoGP race of the season to be held in Barcelona, and injured Djokovic to miss finals. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the Rea Vaya bus services have been suspended until further notice due to stakeholder conflicts. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash reported after Geldnys Interchange. The R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a crash reported before the R25 Babsfontein Road exit. Sandton Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, Prospection Road southbound has heavy traffic reported between Prospection and Amazimtoti, and that's due to traffic diverting from the N2 highway closure. The N11 has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions north of Ladysmith. The N3 in Van Rynens Pass has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions between Pyramids Hotel and the Biltong Shop. In the Free State, the N3 northbound has a truck crash reported between Swinburne and Harrismith. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Rise and shine. Plan to keep rising and shining with victory to secure a decent top-off spot. But the Rockets are not impressed with their slow start of the season. They believe this is the time to collect 3 points. Limpopo battles it out with Mpumalanga. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Mzansi's beautiful game, Polokwane City FC versus TS Galaxy FC on Saturday, 9 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Certainly have lots of people commenting about the conversation with Tebe Kalafeng. One saying he loved the discussion, building our very own super brands. And I must get the book, The Traveller. Well, lots of others very complimentary about the work of Tebe Kalafeng, as I think you should be, right? What about two other things? One, the US election. What's your one word that you would use to describe what the election means to you? Not anybody else, to you. US election, one word to describe it. What is it? You can vote or post now on text form, 0614 104 107. If you do it on voice note, keep it less than around 30 seconds, please. But you can also call in just now, 086 000 2032, and then you can post on social media. Then we've just put out a poll now on the X platform on Twitter, SFM Radio, and the question we're asking you, if it is up to you, rather, not if it's up to you, who would you want to win? Not who's going to win the election. Who would you want to win the US election? So go to that vote line. Go and vote. I certainly want to check out what you've said, right? In the meantime, let's get to some other important issues. The lobby group AfriForum and several other organizations, including the DA, part of the GNU, just making that point, they protested against the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act. That's in Tshwane earlier today. The march started at the Voortrekker Monument in Pretoria and concluded at the nearby Freedom Park. Now, AfriForum believes that the Bella Act is the biggest single challenge for Afrikaans cultural communities since 1994. So, we first got on the line Kali Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum. Kali, good connecting to you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Great speaking to you.
Thank you. Now, I understand that John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, was part of that march, and he said this.
I can say the Democratic Alliance has made it very clear that we've committed to a process of dialogue around this, and we are actively involved in that, both within the clearinghouse mechanism and in bilaterals that are taking place with other parties. And we will continue to go into that process with open hands and an open mind that's willing to look at ways for us to find a compromise through this. I think we can do it. I don't think that there's some certain safeguards that the communities are looking for, and I think we can put them. If that fails, there are a whole lot of paths that are open to us. There's parliamentary steps, there's also court steps, and the right to mother tongue education is contained in the Bill of Rights in South Africa, and our Constitution. It is there precisely to protect linguistic and cultural communities from discrimination or from efforts to try and marginalize them. That is why the framers of the Constitution chose 11 official languages, not just 2, and put that clause in there. So we believe that ultimately, if there's no opportunity to find each other, that the courts will ultimately end up having to decide this, and it'll probably end up in the Constitutional Court for interpretation. But we can avoid all of that. We can find each other. I'm convinced of it. I don't think we're that far apart. I think that there's going to be compromises required on both sides, and I think once those compromises are on the table and there's a mature, open discussion about them, I don't see a reason why we cannot find each other. We need to separate the radical voices out from the rational centre, and I think that I'm certainly not indulging in war talk. Indulging in an open conversation with my fellow Government of National Unity parties and anybody else who's an interested and affected party as stakeholders, and we will continue to have those dialogues, because it's through those dialogues that I believe the ultimate solution will be found.
Okay, certainly let's come out of that conversation from John Steenhuisen. So, Kali Kriel, back to you. Firstly, the march started at the Voortrekker Monument in Pretoria, ended at Freedom Park. I do not think that was a coincidence. Tell me why.
Yes, definitely not a coincidence. Maybe I can also mention we also had 2 other ministers, Peter Groenewald from the Freedom Front Plus, as well as Katie McKenzie from the Patriotic Alliance. Well, the symbolism, I think, in this case, what we are struggling against is, in the first place, that there's an active effort to get rid of Afrikaans as a language of tuition. But then the second point is also there's no effort being made to promote other indigenous languages as a language of tuition. And the Voortrekker Monument, of course, has specific symbolism for Afrikaans-speaking people. But the symbolism to then also go to Freedom Park is to say that we believe that our freedom is threatened, because the right to mother tongue education is a right, and if that is taken away, your freedom is taken away. So it was great that we were able to do that. Of course, the road linking the Voortrekker Monument and Freedom Park is called Reconciliation Road, which I think is appropriate, because I think through mother tongue education for all communities, we can go further in terms of reconciliation, but to anglicize the whole country and say all children must be taught in English will lead to polarization, and that we need to avert.
But is that what you see it as all children must be taught in English, versus that there's a shift in terms of who makes the decisions about that first language or that language in a certain school or suburb?
Well, I think if you just have to listen to what somebody like Pangyasa Lesufi says, or his MEC for Education, Mr. Cheluane, they are quite clear that there is no place for an Afrikaans school in Gauteng. They also said, Mr. Lesufi said he's coming for these schools, so there's no doubt what the intention is with this. And the problem is, you can now try and portray it as beautiful as possible. What we've seen internationally, but also locally, as soon as you have an institution moves to dual medium, the larger language, the international language, prevails, and the other one disappears. We've seen that at the University of Pretoria. It was Afrikaans, then it was said, let's make it Afrikaans and English, now it's English only. Many schools, many other universities have set the same example. So we know what the intentions are. In the end, it will make sure that
the schools are colonized to be single medium English schools, and that we need to avert, because studies have shown that children do the best in their mother tongue. And if you look at our matric results, those children that struggle most are children that have to write matric in their third or fourth language in English.
So it's an interesting point you bring up. I mean, so therefore, as part of where you are, would you also support the use of other languages that are part of the official languages that in many ways academically have been underutilized? And I'm talking about, let's say, isiZulu, isiXhosa comes to mind immediately. Would you as AfriForum also be part of that support to say, why we're not having Zulu and isiZulu and isiXhosa up as important language of instruction in our schools?
Yes, most definitely. We are in constant negotiation with various parties in the parties in the Government of National Unity, also the ANC. And part of our proposal is a broader proposal to say, let's put an obligation on the Education Department to systematically introduce mother tongue education, because we know it's only until grade 3 at the moment. It needs to be taken at least to grade 9 and preferably even to grade 12. The other thing we also would want to see is in terms of Afrikaans schools. When I was young, there was African languages available as a subject in the school. That has disappeared. So one of the things we think should happen is that 3 languages, official languages, should be compulsory as a subject. And I think it would also be good for Afrikaans children, because then at school they'll be able to learn other African languages. But I think it will be good for all languages, that people can start communicating with one another.
All right, of course the Congress to that is the current line of the African National Congress, let's call them that, because they've been in power for a long time on their own, who effectively are suggesting people like the AfriForum are essentially coming from a narrow, racist, self-serving prism or point of view. I mean, do they not have a point to say, why can't you think broader as to what is in the best interest of the whole country?
Well, we are thinking broader. The anti-Afrikaans ideologists have a single focus. The fact is, it's an international accepted principle that mother tongue schools are acceptable. So there's no way that it can be seen as racist. Also, I invite anybody to visit the Afrikaans public school with me. There's not a single school that is exclusive. So that is a fallacy. I think the real problem is those that cry racism and are fighting, saying there should be more access to quality education. The fact is, what have they done? If you look at Mr. Lesufi, since he was MEC and when he ended off, there were 9 less schools in Gauteng than it was when he started his term. There were 340,000 more children. So if there is a barrier to access to education, it is Mr. Lesufi, and now he's trying to take the less than 5% schools in Afrikaans and trying to portray them as that they can solve this huge problem.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. So I hear John Steenhuisen in the clip we just played earlier on, he said we need to separate the radical from the rational. Yes. Do you concur with that, and what's your understanding of it?
Yes, no, definitely. I think what we, if we came forward to say Afrikaans mother tongue education only, and we don't care about anybody else, that would be a radical position. I think the middle position is to say mother tongue education for all children. How can we work to achieve that? What can AfriForum contribute? And how can we work together? Rather than targeting a language. We're also not targeting English. We are just saying that the best way for children to master hard subjects like maths, like science, is through their mother tongue.
Okay.
And we will always have inequalities if children have to learn those concepts in another language that they are not strong in.
Okay, lastly, where and very quickly, how do you see this ending? I understand your position, I understand the ANC's position, and the DA's, of course, right? But how do you see this ending?
Well, we are looking for a solution. Solutions are give and take. So we have started into discussions with numerous parties. Unfortunately, I can't indulge the specifics of such engagement, but I think there is a route that can be found that would be in the interest of all children. So we will work hard for that, and hopefully we can avert the court case, because we see schools, remember, Afrikaans-speaking people don't have traditional areas where our culture can thrive. Schools play a very central role.
Okay, so you're saying hopefully you can avert a court case, but quick answer, if you have to go to court, yes, no, you'll go.
Yes, no. We owe it to our children and those that come after them, that we fight for their rights.
And that's where we're going to leave it to Kali Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum. What do you make of that conversation and his point of view regarding their case for Afrikaans schools and the language of instruction and the governing bodies at schools being able to make the decision as opposed to it being taken away from them? Don't forget your one word to use to describe what the US election means to you. I certainly want to know about it. But let's talk about the 12th World Urban Economic Forum next.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Kimberley.
Well, interesting in the conversation with Tebe Kalafeng about his book, The Traveller, he spoke about building African brands as a way of building the African continent. So with that in mind, the 12th World Urban Economic Forum is underway in Cairo in Egypt, and I thought that really is quite interesting. So let's find out more about it. The SABC News reporter Lerato Fekisi is in Cairo. Lerato, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Hi, Asha.
Thank you. I was in Cairo virtually a year ago this time, so I can imagine the hustle and bustle of that city and that big exhibition center, which I think is where you are right now. But let's get to why you are there. Tell me what you've discovered and uncovered so far.
Well, we arrived, the forum actually kickstarted yesterday when we saw the Minister of Human Settlement, Manuel Kokoba, open for Africa's exhibition at the forum, and where she talked about the importance of this forum being a great opportunity for South Africa to learn from developed countries on how to build inclusive, sustainable, and resilient cities, especially in the wake of the realization of climate change being something that's not going to go anytime soon. And the conversation has been about that and how South Africa can learn from countries such as India and Brazil who have experienced their own advantages in terms of climate change, but how in that is able to build resilient cities. She also spoke about the importance of this, not just being about South Africa taking from new countries in terms of learning, but also time to reflect on the past 50 years and how the human settlement department has achieved what it has achieved in terms of building IDPs, in terms of trying to deal with a huge backlog in terms of housing, and also in terms of the new technologies and innovations that we have seen in terms of housing within South Africa. So she said that it's going to be a profound forum for South Africa, both one of learning, also just sort of reflecting and sharing with other countries what we've done right in our country in terms of housing.
Okay, your line's not great, so I'll just push this very quickly. What for you are amongst the key issues that are still going to be raised in the days ahead?
One of the key issues, Ashraf, has been the issue of rapid urbanization. Most of the countries that have been panelists in the roundtable discussions have talked about the issue of rapid urbanization, how it affects economy, and also the policy. And the conversation has been around how do countries now better prepare for something that is really not in the control of the government. Yeah. So many of the countries spoke about how they are beginning to build more houses in the urban areas, how they also trying to make sure that more people flow into the urban areas, they're able to provide them with services, because as people now move to urban areas in the high numbers they are currently, what we're seeing is basic services such as water, electricity now not being delivered to people. Okay. So countries are showing on how they have started urbanization, how they have been able to build houses that are resilient amidst the urbanization challenge.
And of course, all those things are so important. Let's leave it at that. Lerato Fekisi, appreciate your time. Maybe we'll have another chat in the days ahead. SABC News reporter covering the story of the 12th World Urban Economic Forum being held in Cairo in Egypt. Right. There are lots of comments about the one word.
Afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. One way to describe that US elections, I can say it's a turn up, yeah. We'll see the lady leading that country. I'm telling you, it's gonna Shiba say high flats Eklopo.
Okay, you're saying turn up. You want that lady to lead the country, become the first lady, okay?
Hi, Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, my wish is like if maybe some of the towns, the cities, will like maybe being allowed to rule by a city like political organization, some not. Because like go to Joburg now, go to Germiston, go to Boksburg. You don't know whether maybe you started off shanty town, you go into the rural area or whatever. Even the rural area are better. The people, they just throwing each and everything on town, but it plays the town like we still having like the town like, something for ways, so whereby like maybe the restriction, the bylaws are still applied. But some of the towns, I don't wish some of the political parties wouldn't be allowed to rule.
Okay, got that. Let me just tell you, by the way, I hear your point. In fact, we have a problem across so many cities, towns and cities that have decayed in our country. There's no question about that. When you do send a voice note, try and limit it to 30 seconds. It really helps us to get as many as possible. And sometimes when they're too long, we can't actually play them because we just don't have enough time.
The return of Trump is the end of the world. He's gonna go head to head with Putin and then everything will be mess. That is my submission. Ike Chambers from Tutuzu Tellers from Northbridge, Matsulu, Shop.
The return of Trump will mean the end of the world. Oh my.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Look, the Democrats and the Republicans are the two sides of the same coin. It doesn't matter who wins. The bottom line is the empire is falling. This is the change in Mpangi.
The empire is falling. Now, by that, I guess that you're referring to the USA, aren't you, right? By the way, just while we're at it, do not forget to sign up to attend the SAFM annual lecture, and this year's guest, Dr. Naledi Pandor, delivering that 30 years of South Africa's democracy. Don't miss this, 21st of November. It's at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center in Boksburg, and I'll tell you what, if you get there, well, there's a good chance I'll say hi to you. You can say hi to me. This is what you have to do. Just email. That's it. Email info@safm.co.za. Wouldn't you like to be there? Come on, info@safm.co.za. 4:30 is the news headlines with Daneo.
Thank you, Ashraf. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 4:30. The Constitutional Court has reserved judgment in the Democratic Alliance's bid for confirmation of the Supreme Court of Appeal SCA order, which affirmed that any South African who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remains a South African citizen. In other news, Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says the loss of data that was experienced at the Government Printing Works GPW in February 2021 reaffirms the importance of cybersecurity. Schreiber made his opening remarks where the GPW appeared before Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. And Mozambique is currently experiencing heightened tensions with disruptions reported at the Lebombo border and sporadic violence erupting in the capital Maputo. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Host.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in Pretoria, Eskempa-Hleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street, and the N1 northbound is queuing towards the R21 highway. In KZN, Prospection Road southbound has heavy traffic reported between Prospection and Namanzimtoti due to traffic diverting from the N2 highway closure. In the Free State on the N3 northbound, a truck crash reported between Swinburne and Harrismith. In the Eastern Cape, the R72 as where a cash heist incident reported between Kids Beach and the Peddy Split. You're asked to expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound queuing towards the N1 Koeberg interchange and Victoria Road outbound, slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Domin Kapele.
Right, to me, let's talk sport. Before we get to it, I asked you early on, In fact, let me ask you firstly, Champions League.
Yeah.
The new format, what do you think?
I think it's just too much, man. More teams, more games, but the question is, do we still get the quality games that we would have received if there weren't as many teams as they were? That's my thinking.
So you give me the thumbs down?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a listener who's been listening to you and I talk, and here's an opinion.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I just want to make a comment on that question that you asked to me. That is with regard to the new format of the UEFA Champions League. They have diluted the Champions League just the way that they did to the Super 14 rugby, and eventually they killed it. Too many matches and low quality matches for that matter. I mean, who wants to watch Manchester City versus Celtics or this leagues from Portugal, Scotland, all these lower leagues, man? It's not a great watch. Going to lose interest. Not forgetting that we have a Nations League to top it up. This is too much. Premier and Kuruma.
Speaking to what I just said, the quality of the games.
Speaking to what I just want to say as well. So in principle, I'm in agreement with both of you that the current format, where you play some home games, some away in the group format, but all of them get lumped in one league. It means there are not too many games. There are not too many games. There are too many meaningless games. That's the key difference. Which means in a league format, inevitably the best teams will be in the top 3 or 4 because they're strong. That's why the best team wins the league normally, right? So what it takes away is the element of sudden death that in a group stage, even a good team can have 2 bad games. And when a good team has 2 bad games, they get knocked out of a cup. That's why people get knocked out. Now, this takes it away. This means you have to be pretty useless not to be in the top 8 if you're a good team. And if you don't get in the top 8 and you get into the next group of 8, then you still play in the playoff, which actually means if you're in the bottom tier, only those teams don't qualify, which actually means you can chill and relax.
Is it really a Champions League?
Well, it's still a Champions League, but no, that changed a long time ago. The question is does this format work? I think it'll only get exciting in the last week or 2 for some teams, not for the teams on top. For the teams who are 9th and 10th trying to get 8th, it's exciting for them. For the rest of it, no, you can chill and play, play 30 seconds or something like that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, still talking about football locally, though, Cape Town City coach Eric Tinkler has admitted that their biggest concern so far this season is up front, and he now hopes that his assistant, Lebra Manyama, will help improve that department during the FIFA break. The Citizens were eliminated from the Carling knockout by Richards Bay at the weekend via penalty shootout, and despite having ball possession in their favor, City could not make it count, with Tinkler now looking to Manyama to bring that spark back.
His experience, if there's someone who can help us with that creativity part, because that was one of Liberal's strength, was basically him, and now that we have, 2 weeks that we can sit and work, Liberal now put him in charge of making those front players aware that, hey, these are the situations when you get in that final third, this is where you need to show that creativity, this is where you need to take that risk.
Alrighty, meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs have apologized for a pitch invasion and another incident of missile throwing by supporters as the club anticipates yet another fine or worse from the Premier Soccer League Disciplinary Committee. Now, on Saturday, missiles were thrown again and some fans invaded the pitch at one stage as Chiefs were thrashed 4-0 by Mamelodi Sundowns. Amakosi said 3 fans were arrested for the transgression, and back in October 2023, Chiefs were fined 180,000 rands with a further 50,000 rands suspended for 2 incidents of missile throwing by their supporters from the previous month. And now the club awaits to hear what the punishment is going to be, and it's likely that they might just play more games behind closed doors. I guess that is one thing that Chiefs fans wouldn't want to happen. However, this behavior definitely needs to stop. In golf, the Sunshine Tour has announced a strong second half of its 2024-25 tournament schedule that will feature an exciting new playoff series for the top-performing professionals as part of a thrilling close to the season. The second half of the schedule will also include 2 DP World Tour co-sanctioned tournaments, 4 European Challenge Tour co-sanctioned tournaments, a new tournament, global incentives for the leading professionals. And the year will start with the 2 million rand and Mediclinic Invitational from the 16th to the 19th of January at the Heron Banks Golf Estate. In tennis, two-time defending champion Novak Djokovic says that he will miss the 8-man ATP finals due to an ongoing injury. The 37-year-old, who's currently ranked 5th in the world, sits 6th in the race, the ATP's annual rankings, to determine the 8 competitors at the finals. The likes of Yannick Sinner, Alexander Zverev, Carlos Alcaraz, Daniil Medvedev and Taylor Fritz have already qualified for the event in northern Italy from the 10th to the 17th of November. Then in motorsport, Barcelona will stage the 2024 season-ending MotoGP race from the 15th to the 17th of November after the Valencia Grand Prix was cancelled due to catastrophic floods in the region. At least 217 people died and many are still accounted for in the worst flooding in decades in Spain. Now, the race will decide the outcome of the championship between that battle between Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. By the way, just that rugby comment about even some of the changes in rugby, when they get too big, you just lose the impact. I mean, I know we've discussed it, but yeah.
Player welfare. But I guess you can look at it from a side of perhaps it might just encourage more South African players to play in South Africa. If they're going to have this IPL competition, they'll just go there for 3 weeks, make their money, and still stay in the country.
Yeah, but that South African league in cricket is owned by the IPL.
Yes.
So in SA20, what's it called, right?
Yeah, SA20.
Yeah, it's owned by the IPL. So they're scoring home and away.
Yeah.
That's clever business.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000 with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's talk numbers now with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at the Makwe Fund Managers. Good chatting to you as always. Right, we've got local and global markets coming up, but you've got some news regarding Sibanye.
Afternoon to you and to your listeners, Ashraf. That's their third quarter operational update. We've seen their adjusted overall financial performance up 9%. In the US PGM operations expected to benefit from the US law changes that have been made last month, and higher gold prices helped South African gold operations to generate 292% increase in adjusted EBITDA from 24% increase, and also zinc prices flourished, but the persistent low PGM prices continue to squeeze margins, but they saw prices up nicely 8%. And Ashraf, other than starting the session paying attention to the US presidential elections, Fitch Ratings signal that it may upgrade our credit outlook if the government sticks to its path to stabilize debt as outlined in the midterm budget. And Washington, by the way, doesn't call all the shots anymore, but it still calls plenty of them, and traders are taking a cautious approach, with polls suggesting a photo-finish result, and no one is ready to take a clear investment position on the election, and a Harris win is seen as continuity, and we can expect the dollar to fall, and which will be the opposite with a Trump win. And any delays and or disputes over the voting count can also add to currency volatility this week, and already some hedge funds are betting or are buying the likes of the Rand, Euros and Australian dollar call options, and that's in a bet that the US dollar will weaken if Harris wins. And we saw our October PMI falling slightly to 50.6 from 51, but expanded for 3 months in a row, and China's service activity in October grew at a rate last seen 3 months back, and the euro metal continued to maintain its shine amid election uncertainty and expectation of a US rate cut on Thursday.
Gold is up 0.3% at $2,744. Platinum up 1.8% at $1,000. Oil prices continue to heat up after OPEC Plus delayed plans to hike production in December. We see Brent crude is up 0.5% at $75 a barrel. Global stocks Ashraf are muted with the JSE up 0.3% led by our resources. The rand fell almost 0.4% against the US dollar is now 17.42, 22.65 against the pound and 19 to the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that as always. We'll have another report from you tomorrow, of course. Right. Let's get to some of your thoughts. Okay, let's do this. In fact, let me play some of the comments that you've got. And somebody said Trump wins World War, or the end of the world. Here's another comment on Trump.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Since 2016, when Trump was running for the President of the United States, I've been following the man. The guy is so smart, man. Like, he's very, very smart. His policies are very, very smart. I mean, we all want a leader who prioritizes his people. You can't be prioritizing other countries, whereas you have your own domestic issues that need to be addressed. So for these elections, I'm still vouching for President Donald J. Trump to win this election. And yeah, he's going to win it. I know him. He's going to win these elections.
Okay, got that, and there's further comment about you like his policies. That's interesting. Here's the opposite.
Ashraf, KK used JJ used to explain. You know, Ashraf, whatever we don't like about America, but America has got too much influence even among us, even if we don't like it. So those who can say Trump is going to be better because he's going to concentrate on America. No. He's going to hit us South Africa hard because he likes Israel more than even Biden. He's going to hit us hard. So, me, I don't like both of them, but I wish for Trump to lose, so we can show that the democracy in America is fragile.
We have some work to do.
Okay. Well, it is fragile, that's for sure. What about your thoughts? Would you like to call in and express your opinions? 086 000 23... No, let me get it right. 086 000 2032. You can comment on any of the biggest issues that drives the National Pulse today, including the issue of Kali Kriel and their march for AfriForum around the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act. Any thoughts on that? Comments on the conversation I had with Tere Kalafeng, who's done more than most to promote the African continent in terms of you build the continent by building the brands within the continent. He has just launched his new book called The Traveller because he's been to every single country on the African continent. Comments on that. Comments on, my one word to describe the U.S. election, or your one word. What do you think it means to you? Tell me just one word. Post it. You can text or voice note 0614-104-107. Let's get to some of your comments too. Solomon in Cape Town, go ahead. Hello.
Hello, Ashraf. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the coming back of Trump might win the election in America, but I think the world will collapse. That is the craziest thing which will happen in the world. Because that guy will go ahead with Russia, and you know Russia is very powerful with Chinese, and it's going to be the total collateral damage in the world.
Total collateral. Well, there you are. Okay, got that. So certainly many people have those views. And therefore, it is a valid question, how important is the U.S. election to us? In fact, there was an argument the other day about it to say, does South African media give too much prominence to the U.S. election versus, for example, the Mozambican election that took place recently, as well as Botswana? We know we've certainly covered Botswana and the Mozambican election on this show extensively. But the truth is, the U.S. election on one end is further away from us, but the impact that it has is probably even as much as a Mozambican election would have on us. It really does, okay? Shaka in Bloemfontein, go ahead, hello.
Hello, Ashraf. Ashraf, I'm not look at it. The Republicans or Democrats. They're basically the same. We're talking in terms of foreign policy. There won't be much change as far as the foreign policy is concerned. For instance, I heard what Mike from Middleburg was saying that the Ukrainian war might come to an end. Yes, it will come to an end, but now Trump is made to have said that he want Israel to finish the war in Gaza. In other words, he will give them the space to annihilate all the Gaza citizens. Okay. And of course, he's got this hatred for Iran and so on. And of course, not much will go on in Lebanon because of Hezbollah and so on. So it's a conundrum. Trump is not like fairly straightforward. It's a bit tricky. His foreign policy is tricky. It depends on his mood, on his personality, and so on.
But that suggests that Kamala is any better. Did you see Biden when he was in charge? They are as erratic rather as anything. So Shaka, thanks for that. Let's see if I can play some more comments. Here's one about schools. Of course, it has to be language, right?
Hi Ashraf, it's Mudechi here from Cape Town. Another conversation that is missing for me regarding language and schools is the fact that in order for our children to be in the more affluent schools or in the suburbs, our children are forced to learn Afrikaans as a second additional first language. I hope I'm phrasing it correctly, but something like that. They are forced to learn Afrikaans because there's no other language besides English and Afrikaans that are offered at the school, and Afrikaans as a first additional language is compulsory. That is a conversation that is missing, and that is a conversation that I think also needs to be discussed, because it's not a language that is spoken at home. It's not a language that they speak with their friends, but it's a language that they are forced to learn because there's no other offering.
Well, that's an interesting one. I tell you what, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Kali Kriel says, but the one thing that I think is important, and in many ways Tebe Kalafeng said something in a different way but saying the same thing, that Africans have got to lead. So the point is, when there's a lack of good isiZulu schools or isiXhosa like private schools, top-notch schools in the country, right? If we don't have them, then what is the investment amongst the leading industrialists who come from that community in this country to do just that? And if you don't do that, I'm not talking about government, if you don't do that, then don't expect anybody else to do it. That's what Afrikaners did in the past. That's what many other groupings, I think people you have Greek schools, you have Islamic schools, Hindu schools. So you have the general schools, but if they want to emphasize their language, they've built them. And the question is, to what degree is there an investment from the very wealthy South African black communities to be able to build schools that reflects their culture, as opposed to even waiting for government? I'm not saying government must do nothing. They've got a big role to play as well. You know that.
Ashraf and SAFM listeners, hey man, you just made my day. The way you are saying isiZulu, isiXhosa, many people wish all other nations in South Africa could be able to, to pronounce these names the way they are. It's like sometimes even some of us black people, when we say somebody saying I'm a Tswana, how do you say I'm a Tswana when you are a Mutswana? You must say I am a Mutswana, so that the person you are telling who you are understand exactly how you should say it. When you are a Mzulu, you must say I am Umzulu, I am Xhosa, I am a Xhosa, I am a what. The way you are saying it, thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. The way you are saying it, people will think Mutswana, but thanks.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. But first of all, in saying is it Zulu or is it Xhosa, it doesn't mean I'm fluent in it. No, in fact, I struggle, and I think that's a reflection of what we've done, and we haven't paid enough attention to it. Perhaps we need to change that. It's a comment I'll probably raise some other time, maybe after this.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom.
reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM. Prime time all day long.
Right, so just a quick thought about the language part. I'm talking about, saying isiZulu, isiXhosa. The reality is, especially people who are not, as we'd call, Black African, they struggle with African languages, including myself, and then we also get vice versa. And as you said, even people who have African languages struggle amongst themselves. I think what this country needs is we have to have like quick, easy tutorials to say, don't be an expert at it. Just learn 10 quick things about languages, some of the most basic things, and to pronounce it. And I need to sign up myself because I think all of us are lacking in that, right? Okay, think about that and maybe give me your comments on that too. I'd like to know. So what we do every day around once a week around this time is we focus on business strategy. So what is the business strategy of the Run Alex Athletics Club? I say that because the Watermelon Gang is what they nicknamed. Well, they're on a journey to become one of the most formidable running clubs in the country. So let's see, not so much about the running, but the business strategy as to how they would grow it with Sipiwe Nkosi, who's the Juniors Director at Run Alex Athletics Club. Sipiwe, I appreciate your time. You are connected to the National Pulse.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's talk in terms of your strategy. Where is Run Alex now? That means, how big, how small is the club right now?
I've said the club, it's quite big. It's grown tremendously over the past few years. Remember, this didn't start as a club. We started as an organization that just wanted to bring change into Alex. That started as a small group of people that was just training and just introducing healthy lifestyle. Then we went on to introduce and registered a running club. And over the years, then we've just went on to identify the needs within Alex and just kept responding to those needs. One of the greatest needs that we responded to, it's the kids in Alex, because one of the issues that we have, the biggest problem in Alex, it's the issue of space, and what do those kids do during their spare time. And we introduced our juniors program, and our focus as a club has been to develop that program. And I think what we made sure that the juniors, that none of the parents have to worry about affording to take the juniors into the program. The club made it their business to make sure that every child in Alex, irrespective of what their family status is able to participate in this program.
Okay, so what then is the plan? Because in making it big, maybe here's the first point, how big do you want it to be? I mean, and do you measure the big in numbers of members of the club, or in money terms? How are you going to measure it?
It's measured on the impact it has on the community. The impact that it has on the community. We're focusing on running now. In 2023, we introduced the reading program as well, where the kids now have to spend a compulsory hour of reading, and there's a lot of things that we're going to build towards that. We just recently had a spelling bee competition for all grade 4s and grade 5. So our measure into the community is the impact that we have within the community and the opportunities that we open for kids and the people living in Alex.
Okay, so in practical terms then, so you've got this vision, and part of this, you are in a competing business, I suppose. What then is the actual strategy as you roll it out? What you're going to do short term, medium term, long term?
Yeah, so currently one of our biggest focus now is that it's a race that we host annually. It's a 10K race. You look at Alex hasn't had any opportunities to host the race. As I've mentioned, that our biggest challenge has been space. So a lot of people didn't believe that you can build a race in Alex, but we've done a race and it's been a successful race, and that has been one of our key areas that helped us to achieve everything that we want to achieve within the club, is based on what we've raised from that race. And then the direction of the race is actually changing now. It's not just about running anymore. It's focusing now on the on the tourism in Alex. There's a lot of partners now that are getting involved to try and get as many people as possible into Alex, and because we believe that by getting people into Alex, that's the only time that we can start creating opportunities for people.
Okay, but so when you say you're going to try and get as many people into Alex, what's the actual plan? You know, what I'm saying I want to get many is one thing. The other is, what are you actually going to do? Do you have a plan that you've mapped out to say this is what we're going to do to get them there?
Yeah, so one of the I think one of the challenges is that a lot of people, as much as people want to visit Alex, there's always worries about certain things in Alex. So one thing that we've done now, which is going to be done through our launch, is going to be announcing a partner that's going to be assisting us in terms of making sure that people can get into Alex safely without any hassles, shuttled into the race venue, and then shuttled back to where they can get the park as well, and be able to leave Alex safely without any hassles and any worries.
But can you sustain it? What I'm saying is, I understand there's concerns about, you know, safety and crime in that area. So maybe on a one-off, you can get people shuttled in. But can you do that all the time? And at whose expense would that be? You know, yours or theirs?
The partner's expense.
Okay, so who would be the partner? Because I'm trying to see where the cost comes into that.
Can you just repeat?
I was saying, if you're saying at the partner's expense, who would be the partner? I mean, who would be willing to pay for that expense, and what do they gain out of it?
So when you look at the race itself and what the race offers, we've got a number of partners that have taken. We've got Etheridge that has taken the sponsorship rights onto that event to make sure that that event goes and touches more lives within the community of Alex. So now we're speaking to partners like Gautrain that is going to come in as well to make sure that people that are coming into the event are able to be shuttled in safely, are able to be shuttled back out of Alex, and then the events can just keep going every year, because the more the event goes every year, the more the community has the funds available to do all the programs that we want to do within the community.
Well, we certainly hope that you're going to succeed at that. So best wishes. We certainly will look out for what you've done, all right? Siphiwe Nkosi, the juniors director at the Run Alex Athletics Club, right? So earlier when I had a chat with Tebe Kalafeng, who's now within a book called The Traveler. Here's some comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. No, the Honorable Gentleman, Ndate Tebe Kalafeng, is one of is South Africa's pioneer in terms of branding. I too was also at the book launch day in Rosebank Mall, the exclusive books. I must say it was a large crowd, and I've never seen such a large crowd for a book launch, you know. Apparently he says it was 700 people. It felt like it was more than 1,000 plus people there at Rosebank. But anyway, that was just my input. Thank you, Bryanston.
Well, there you are. Thank you. So, one thing I didn't say when Tebe was here, because he knew that, is having got to the book launch and being right at the back in a 700-person book launch, I had the privilege of meeting him 3 days before that in Rosebank, and he's like, hey, don't talk to me, go and buy my book. This is like before the book launch. So I bought the book and met him at Woolworths, and we chatted, and he went up with me back to Exclusive. We took some pictures. I posted it on my social media pages. Check it out, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So we had a conversation about the book 4 days or so, 3 or 4 days before the book launch. But yeah, it was quite phenomenal, which tells you the incredible drawing power of people who are able to not just inspire, but they impact people, as he spoke about, changing lives, one life at a time. 5 o'clock, here's the news with Greg Gross.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, ConCourt reserves judgment in citizenship case and AfriForum threatens court action over Bella Act. Good day to you. The Constitutional Court has reserved judgment in the DA's bid for confirmation of a Supreme Court of Appeal order which affirmed that any South African who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remains a South African citizen. This follows the 2023 judgment of the SCA, which upheld the DA's challenge of the constitutionality of a section of the Citizenship Act. The section stipulates that South Africans may lose their citizenship upon voluntary and formal acquisition of citizenship of another country. Advocate Anton Katz represented the DA.
We submit that the Supreme Court of Appeal got it bang on correctly by finding that not only did the respondents not put up any rationale for the purpose of 61A, but there is no purpose, objectively.
The Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says the loss of data that was experienced at the government printing works in 2021 reaffirms the importance of cyber security. He made his opening remarks where the printing works appeared before Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. The entity briefed the full committee on the findings and recommendations in a report of a ministerial review panel which probed the incident caused by a hardware failure. Minister Schreiber elaborates.
It was really a very difficult moment because it had an impact across the organization, and I think what stands out about this event is the centrality once again of technology in how modern society operates. And if you don't have the level of technology and cybersecurity that you require to function, then it has cross-cutting and cascading effects, including, of course, Chair, most, I suppose, relevantly at the moment, the audit outcomes, given what the committee would have been dealing with. So that has been a real setback.
The Gauteng Department of Education says it's still awaiting a report from health officials on whether the food from their school nutrition program could be the source of the death of 2 children at a primary school in Katlehong, east of Johannesburg. The family says the young boy and girl had eaten snacks from a spaza shop and food served at school. Department spokesperson Steve Mabona.
There's a food that will be put aside so that in the event of anything, the food is tested and then the results will then be provided to us. We did the same with this one. We allowed the health officials to take the food. So we are waiting for the results of the food that was consumed on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday.
AfriForum's Kali Creel says if the government doesn't accede to their demands on the Bella Act, they'll be left with no option but to head to court. The lobby group, as well as Union Solidarity, marched in Pretoria against clauses 4 and 5 of the Bella Act, stating that the Act takes away the right of school governing bodies to make important decisions about admission and language. Creel says failure to heed to their demands means that government would have declared Afrikaans as the enemy.
It be that the government declares Afrikaans speakers as the enemy, because that is what is happening if you target their schools. But we also then going to take legal action. Our legal team is already prepared, but hopefully it won't come to that, and that we can have a broad coalition of people saying mother tongue education is important.
Operations at the Lubombo border post with Mozambique have been affected by ongoing unrest in that country. The spokesperson for the Border Management Authority, Mema Mkhotsi, says traffic which was stuck at the border has since been cleared. Unrest broke out in Mozambique after elections last month, which were won by the ruling Frelimo party. Opposition parties, though, have denounced the election as fraudulent. Mkhotsi elaborates.
Wish to inform the public and cross-border stakeholders about the current situation at the Lubombo border, where traffic congestion is being experienced due to traffic blockages on the Mozambican side. However, trucks are being steadily facilitated and efforts are underway to manage the flow of goods and vehicles as efficiently as possible. Ongoing operations with our Mozambican counterparts are being implemented with a focus on clearing congestion.
Top story, the ConCourt has reserved judgment in the DA's bid for confirmation of a Supreme Court of Appeal order which affirmed that any South African who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remains a South African citizen. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoos.
In sports this hour, Champions League to take centre stage tonight and Andrew Djokovic to miss finals. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a crash before the R25 Papsfontein Road exit. Van Riebeeck Avenue northbound in Edenvale has a crash at Hallwood Street, and the N1 northbound in Midrand slow moving towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. Heavy traffic reported between Prospection and Amanzimtoti due to traffic diverting from the N2 highway closure and heavy traffic on multiple routes through the Isipingo area due to traffic diverting from the N2 highway closure. The R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive, and Chris Hani Road northbound is slow moving through Bruyadeen. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is queuing towards the R300 highway exit. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive is queuing at the N1 highway interchange, and at Bree Street there's a crash reported at Wales Street. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Ramanda Masha. They all believe Utukusoba right, Umep right, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, this certainly is the National Pulse, and we cover the issues that that moves the National Pulse. So what do you think today, according to you, what has been the biggest issues, besides the US election, in our country that moves the National Pulse? Is it that conversation regarding the Bella Bill? Well, here's a thought around it. Now, you know, we already had a chat with Kali Creel, and we quoted John Steenhuisen. Of course, I was not in the presser, but here's the interesting thing. I'm looking at Fidel Haffrage's comment, right? Because she's got a picture of the South African flag in her tweet, okay? The old, no, must say that, the apartheid South African flag, orange, white, blue. And she's saying, orange, blue, white, under the Voortrekker monument, do you think we're stupid? She's subtweeting John Steenhuisen because there's a picture of him, and if you look at the flags, so there's no flag, there's no old flag there, but the colors, which is not the colors of the political party, not the DA, and it's certainly not of AfriForum. It comes across as orange, white, and blue, and that is her question. Does she have a point to say, do you think we're stupid? Because there's powerful symbolism coming through on that one there, right? I have another message, because we get listeners from all over just saying, raise some issues. So here's one from a person saying, Ashraf, you know what, there's a big problem on the national roads, people just pulling off the roads to urinate, right? We have women and children who see these things, and people just pull off, and they standing and they peeing, and they have national roads, they have restrooms, can't they use that, right? What do you think about it? Because interestingly enough, I was driving with my wife, not on national roads. We were on my street. I think about it now. Yeah, my son and I, in fact, not my wife. On my street, like literally a kilometer away, and you can see this guy just standing on the corner near the bus stop and just, urinating. Is there ever a time when that sort of thing is okay, or is that not okay? And if it's okay, where do you think that would take us? Just think about that. More comments on the one thing for you that one word you'd give to describe the US election. You can certainly go ahead and give me your words. There's more comments about the elections.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Afternoon, South Africa. Well, the USA elections is just bad news for the world, because the party can change, but the imperialistic policy of the country doesn't change. It doesn't matter who comes into power. The more worse is that Donald Trump is going to be the God of Israel. The last time he gave them the Golden Heights, he moved their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This time around, they're going to clean out Gaza and resettle settlers. That's how it's going to be. Major from Guatemala.
You know, I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. It's like, how do you know that? How do people know exactly the foreign policy of a country in a new administration? Like, they know exactly what's going to happen. It just baffles me, okay? Right, we should be chatting to the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation shortly, but before that, let's talk to Athol Trollip. He's the Action SA parliamentary leader. So, Athol, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thanks for your time, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, we're talking to you because you yourself, your party, has taken up a position regarding specifically around Zizi Kodwa and what happened to him. We spoke about this the other day, that in fact he's off the hook. Whether it's permanent or not, I don't know. There's a big question about that. Now, you have a view on that and you want to take some action. Tell me about it.
Yeah, thanks, Ashraf. It's not only my view or my party's view. The National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoy, wrote to the President in August last year and asked the President to act against Andrew Chauke, who is the Director of Public Prosecutions in South Gauteng, and mainly around some inexplicable decisions that he had taken around prosecutions and or not prosecuting. And once again, he has another inexplicable decision that he has taken, because in July this year, the NPA advised the public that they had a strong case against Zizi Kodwa and Mr. McKay. And now in November, Mr. Chauke has withdrawn the prosecution on the strength of information that has been provided to him. Now, we believe that that's anomalous, and so too do the Hawks. Unfortunately, the Hawks have also petitioned Shamila Batoy to ask her to take this matter under review, and she has undertaken to do that. But our concern is that only the President can suspend a Director of Public Prosecutions, and the National Director has asked the President to act, and he has had more than a year and he hasn't acted, and that's a matter of concern for us.
Okay, and what regarding Andrew Chauke do you find so concerning to the point where you want to take action against him?
Well, as I said, it's not just me or action.
No, I hear you, but I mean in plural terms, you singular plural in terms of you want to take action.
Ashraf, I'm using the Zizi Kodwa case, but there are many other cases. There are many other notorious cases that have given rise to the National Director of Public Prosecution asking for him to be suspended and investigated. But let's just use the Zizi Kodwa matter. Mm-hmm. If the NPA in July say that they're going to proceed with the prosecution on the strength of information and evidence that they have, and they believe that it's a prosecutorial case, and then a few months later they say, no, they're going to withdraw the prosecution on the strength of some affidavits or information provided by the two accused. Mm-hmm. Now, that's irregular, and we want it to be addressed. But fortunately, that's not a matter for debate anymore, because Shamila Batoy has undertaken, on the strength of an appeal by the Hawks, that she review this decision, and I'm very pleased she's going to review that decision. My concern is that I wrote to the President to say to the President, there has been an appeal for you to suspend this man based on a long list of issues of concern, and it's been a year and you have not done that, and only you can do that.
And has he responded at all?
No, the letter went yesterday morning, so we will await his response, but I've put it on the record now, and I've said to the President, and I've issued a statement to say that we want to know why the President hasn't acted, and it's been a year. And, Ashraf, there's another matter that I'm dealing with the presidency around the issue of the Minister of Justice, Minister Simelane, who had received a loan from Gundo Wealth Solutions when she was the mayor of Polokwane. Mm-hmm. And the President has, on a number of occasions, since he was in China, which was, about 2 months ago, the President has said that he needs time and space. And then in Parliament it came up again during questions to the President. And once again he said he needed time and space to deal with this.
Now, we know that the president likes to take his time, but a whole year to deal with a formal request to suspend a director of public prosecutions, I think is excessive.
So what do you feel in terms of that it's taken a year? I mean, you've now had to write a letter formally, I hear that. How would you interpret him taking that long? Is it because there's a willful reason why he doesn't want to, or do you think that he's just too busy with other things, like, trying to win an election, for example, and other things? What would you think?
Well, it would be very speculative. I mean, you've already just given two good examples, but it would be speculative of me if I said those were the reasons why he hasn't taken action. But our concern as Action SA, and I'm sure it's the concern of the man in the street in South Africa, is that we have the Zondo Commission that costs billions of rands, and there's always an opportunity cost with something like that, because a huge amount of money is spent, and then you expect value for that money. Now, when it comes to prosecuting cases that have arisen during the Zondo Commission, and Zizi Kodwa is one typical kind of case of a high-profile politician implicated in corruption and impropriety, nothing seems to happen. The only prosecution that we've seen related to state capture is of a gentleman in the United States who was found guilty of corruption and corrupting SAA employees. No one in South Africa. So that's why this Zizi Kodwa case is so important. If we are going to be true to our word, and if the president's going to be true to his undertakings of no longer countenancing corruption, and that steps are going to be taken against high-profile people who commit corruption, well, then the Zizi Kodwa matter should be one of those that should enjoy focused attention, but it seems that it's going to be swept under the carpet again.
So I was going to ask you, what is your opinion about the Zizi Kodwa case?
I have no opinion, except other than there's evidence that he received 1.6 million rand in cash and 480,000 rands worth of luxury accommodation paid for by Mr. McKay for him in Cape Town, and that is unaccounted for. Now, if it was me, and I'm a member of Parliament, and there's an Executive Members Ethics Act, and there's an Ethics Act in Parliament, if I've received that kind of money and that gratuitous funding of my accommodation, I'd be in serious trouble. Now, I want to know why somebody like Zizi Kodwa can have a case withdrawn against him when nobody has disputed that he has received that money or received the accommodation paid for.
Well, I think it's a point that many people would want to have answered as well, and it certainly puts into question just how prosecutions take place in the first place. So, Athol Trollip, thanks for your time. Let's see what happens. Let's see whether the President responds to you or not as well. Athol Trollip, the Action SA parliamentary leader. But by the way, you listening in, this is the National Pulse, so you have the conversations that certainly moves us, right? Does that conversation move you? Do you have an opinion on the Athol Trollip and Action SA's position regarding that? What about that point I made about Field Hafford saying those colours of that march was orange, white and blue? He says, come on, we're not stupid, linking it to the South African apartheid era flag. Any thoughts on that? Here's another one, Ashraf. The cases are withdrawn from TG. Cases are withdrawn every day in this country, and there's nothing wrong with Chauke refusing to prosecute, as even the NPA head has done the same in many cases. And Trollip and others must not be selective in the pursuit of justice. And remember, even judges and magistrates took such decisions all the time. And Action SA does not make sense, as they say you are not guilty until otherwise.
Sunday weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 rand, courtesy of Theodora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. Also Friday, VS Gaming Weekly is back on your screen, bigger and better with more exhilaration. Draw near as we shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring you everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Witness Telkom VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 2 p.m. on SABC1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC2. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Outside of electricity and load shedding, the issues of water has become one of the biggest issues in our country. Maybe not a big deal before, well, it's now absolutely an imperative. It's that important. So the Minister of Water and Sanitation, that's Phemi Majudina, well, the Minister led a media briefing to reflect on the performance of the ministry during its first 100 days around the issues of water and sanitation. Okay, so reflecting on that, we are joined now by David Matlobo, who's the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation. Deputy Minister, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon to all your listeners across the length and breadth of our land.
Okay, as I said in my intro, I think the issue of water sanitation, scarcity of water is now one of the biggest issues in our country. So 100 days in office, what can you tell us upon reflection?
Upon reflection, we wanted to use the 100 days to reassure South Africans on a number of issues, building on the work of the last six administration. Firstly, one of the biggest questions, do we have sufficient water, yes or no, until 2030? And we were to answer that question, as I have to say, the water balance in the country looks okay until 2030, but there are areas of concern. We call them localized deficit. You will remember, because climate change has caused problems. You remember the story of Cape Town, then the story of Nelson Mandela Bay, where there was a drought over a long period. Now people are crying about issues around Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and many other areas. We have to answer that and say no more has to be done in responding to water security, especially by dealing with the issues of trying to bring in line major infrastructure projects that were delayed, whether building of dams, whether the augmentation of dams. That's one matter we dealt with. The other matter we had to deal with as was the major issues related to water provisioning to households. And there have been a number of challenges we have been grappling with, because after we released the drop reports, whether the blue drop, the green drop, and not drop, one of the biggest problems we had to deal with is issues of water threats, especially in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, on the basis that municipalities have not been doing certain things correct around management of their infrastructure. And the water leaks are very, very big. But there has been discussion between ourselves and Gauteng, and a lot of interventions that are being put in place to ensure that Gauteng doesn't run out of water. But we are very pleased that they are coming to the party. There is leadership now, but there are still major areas like infrastructure upgrades, how they use their own money, because sometimes they sell the water, they don't bring the water money back just to invest back in water. Then there's an issue about relations with citizens, And we have to deal with all of them all over the provinces, especially KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Limpopo. Those are the things to say, how are we supporting municipalities? Then the other matters is reforms in the water sector. One of the biggest reforms, Ashraf, is to say municipalities are struggling. Therefore, they can't continue to implement the issue of being water services providers and water services authorities at the same time. The idea of getting other entities that are capable in a short term, like in a special purpose vehicle, bringing what we call private sector investment, like what we do in with Rand Water, the issues of concession and others, including our working with the infrastructure fund to get that issue.
So let me just put you on. So let me put you on pause. So upon reflection, and I hear that. So can you say, the accusation or the sense from people that Joburg A has a water crisis and B will run short of water completely, run out of water? Are you saying that's not true, or is it likely to happen?
One thing that is not going to happen, Ashraf, we are not going to run out of water. But especially in terms of the bulk water availability in the system, remember we have the Val Dam right now. It's part of a number of dams that give it water called the integrated Val River system. Right now, because there's a heat wave there, Ashraf, the system is below 40%. But at a particular point, we'll be able to pump water from Mpumalanga. We can also pump water from KwaZulu-Natal. That dam there in Harrismith, Kospelfontein will have water. But the system, Ashraf, it remains so vulnerable, very vulnerable and inconsistent. The reason why it is vulnerable is because if Rand Water in Gauteng gives Gauteng municipalities 5 billion liters, and out of that, more than 45% in some municipalities, like that small municipality called Mfuleni, loses 78% of the water. If then they don't replace the old pipes and then put new pipes so that they don't lose so much water, and the people that are illegally connecting, then citizens will not have water. And citizens are also not going to be able to pay. If they don't pay because the water goes in the ground, the municipalities will owe the water boards. Then there's an issue where there's a water leak. You could see water is gushing out, there's a pipe burst. And if the pipe burst is not fixed within a shortest period of time, it's a water that is being lost. That's what is a major problem that we are dealing with in Gauteng, and they've agreed that that matter must be arrested. Then in the meantime, because of the high usage, because of heat wave, but because of the relationship between citizens and water, Gauteng residents on average are using about 290 liters per person per day, while the global average is about 173. But if you go to Cape Town are spending less. You go to Ekurhuleni, that usage is not an issue in the name.
Okay, let me just pause a bit. We're on to news time. Yeah, I'm going to pause a bit on to news time because we need to move on. So, all things considered, right? Considering, most of the people heading up the department are fairly new at it, right? What for you are the top 3 priorities? But if you can answer that in just one sentence, just one short sentence, the top 3 priorities of the department.
One of the biggest priorities in the department is to ensure that we provide leadership to the sector, and all those who are supposed to make decisions, whether it's premiers and municipalities, they do that. We relook at the implementation model where we bring performance contracts around the issues of water provision to citizens, payment of services that must happen, and then the last one is how citizens themselves have to play a positive role around how they relate with water and how they actually do water use efficiency. Less water, but more production.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it. Appreciate your time in getting those 3 points across so very quickly. David Mahlobo, who's the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation. You got that? To paraphrase, leadership, the implementation model, and certainly the citizens playing their part, their role as well. Just gone 5:30. Here's the news headlines with Greg House.
Quick look at those headlines. The International Relations and Cooperation Minister says the GNU, the Government of National Unity, looks forward to rebuilding trade and investment relations with the United Kingdom. The Crown Court's reserved judgment in the DA's bid for a confirmation of a Supreme Court of Appeal order which affirmed that any South African who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remains a South African citizen. And Botswana is set to swear in its newly appointed cabinet members in the coming days. More on that story and other news, as always, at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. Sandton Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards the R21 highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. Chris Hani Road northbound is slow moving through Briadine, and the N2 southbound in Isibingo is closed at Joyner Road due to structural damage, so expect delays and diversions. In the Eastern Cape on the R72, a cash heist incident reported between Kids Beach and the Paddy Split. Yes, expect delays and diversions. In the Free State, the N3 northbound has a truck crash reported between Swinburne and Harrismith. All lanes are open. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M5 northbound is queuing towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive has a crash reported just north of Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards the Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Domin Khapele.
Right, to me, let's talk sport. We've been lamenting, well, not we, some people have been lamenting the fact that their Kaizer Chiefs are not playing well. But there's also praise for some stability at Orlando Pirates, right?
Absolutely. Orlando Pirates are in action, and they're looking to claim their seventh consecutive Betway Premiership win when they lock horns with Richards Bay FC at Orlando Stadium this evening. Not only that, tonight marks Jose Rivero's 100th game in charge of Orlando Pirates, and in 99 games, Rivero achieved 60 wins, 20 draws, and 19 losses. Now, we've seen how the Sea Robbers have had an impressive start to the new season, and they're currently top of the league with 18 points, having won all 6 of their opening matches. Richards Bay, on the other hand, they're currently in 12th place, having managed to collect just 5 points from 6 matches. The KZN side are also eager to avoid defeat, having already lost to the Buccaneers at the Kingsway Litini Stadium this season. And according to head coach Brian Truta, he believes that Pirates are genuine title contenders, but is not ruling out an upset from his young squad.
With the loss against Polokwane from Sundowns, it Pirates right in there, either challenges or genuine contenders about dethroning Sundowns. So their belief is there. It's going to be tough in terms of quality, in terms of being away from them, in terms of the fatigue, in terms of the red card, in terms of the injuries. We will no mistake about it. But something about the youngsters, they welcome this challenge. And once you put this in front of the youngster, you either swing, sink, or swim. But in this case, they say today that they are brave, and that's what we like. There's lots of energy and hard work. You can't fault it, and you can go with that.
Elsewhere, AC Milan visit Real Madrid tonight in the Champions League for a match among the two most decorated clubs in the tournament's history. It will be a clash of 12th and 25th place teams after 3 of the 8 rounds of the revamped tournament. Now, the new format sends only top 8 teams directly to the round of 16 in January, and teams that finish number 9 to 16 are seeded in the knockout playoffs round in February against teams that are ranked in 17th to 24th, while the winners of those two-legged encounters advance to the round of 16 in March. In terms of other selected fixtures tonight, Liverpool host Leverkusen, and Manchester United away to Sporting. Kick-off is around 10 p.m. Then in cricket, the Proteas women are set to host a series of high-profile fixtures against top opponents, including India, Australia, Pakistan, and the West Indies. They will also embark on challenging tours to England, New Zealand, Bangladesh, and Zimbabwe. Now, this is part of the women's future Future Tours program from 2025 to 2029 cycle, which will give the women's national team more competitive opportunities and promote the game locally and internationally. Now, this new cycle will feature more than 400 matches, including big events such as World Cups. In rugby, Alistair Coetzee has been unveiled as the new head coach of Eastern Province. Coetzee coached Eastern Province from 2001 to 2003 before joining Jake White's Springbok coaching staff as an assistant coach back in 2004. And he says he's happy to be back and hoping to bring the team back into the light. Meanwhile, an IPL-style rugby tournament is set to kick off in the USA in 2026, and organizers are reportedly eyeing several big-name players, including the Springboks from all over the world. It's believed that several player agents in South Africa have already signed confidentially agreements, and there are speculations suggesting that around 280 men and 140 women will be recruited for the league, with potential starting salaries reaching up to 15.8 million rand. In tennis, two-time defending champion Novak Djokovic says that he will miss the 8-man ATP finals due to an ongoing injury. The 37-year-old who sits sixth in the race had already been in the finals. However, unfortunately for him, he says he is injured and he won't make it through and join the likes of Yannick Sinner, Alexander Zverev, Carlos Alcaraz, Daniil Medvedev and Taylor Fritz. Then finally in golf, the Sunshine Tour has announced a strong second half of its 2024-25 tournament schedule that will feature an exciting new playoff series for the top performing professionals as part of a thrilling close to the season. The second half of the schedule will also include two DP World Tour co-sanctioned tournaments, 4 European Challenge Tour co-sanctioned tournaments, a new tournament and global incentives for the leading professionals. Now, the year will start with the 2 million rand Mediclinic Invitational from the 16th to the 19th of January at the Heron Banks Golf Estate. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say just now, but no, clearly not just now. Your mind's out, eh? Yeah. Tomorrow. Okay, perfect. And you'll watch your Champions League games tonight and wonder whether there's any nail-biting games, and maybe not, isn't it?
Looking forward to it.
Recharged, and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As Coach Alicia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Uthat Omabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, overnight oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. The national rail policy is aimed at modernizing the rail sector, and the reduction of water use license backlogs has attracted 24.4 billion rands in investment. The recently gazetted visa system regime will attract critical skills and investment whilst boosting tourism to ignite the economy and enable job creation. These reforms demonstrate considerable progress in transforming South Africa's economy and addressing the binding constraints on growth. Building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, good to connect with you as always, Jimmy. You've got a big show coming up at 6, I know, but let's start with this. What's moving markets today?
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. We seemingly are having a better time. Fitch has that is a ratings agency, Fitch has alluded to the fact that we could potentially see a re-rating of South Africa and the perception from their perspective. And we know the ratings agencies become so important when we are looking at the state of our bonds and the investment case that is for our bonds. We know that some some investment houses and asset managers and hedge funds do not invest in sub-investment grade bonds, and would like to see our re-ratings happening soon as possible, so that we can see some foreign flows back into our bonds and some foreign investment back into the South African picture. So very interesting stance from Fitch's perspective. It's the first time we've seen signs of a positive re-rating pretty much since we've been downgraded. We know we had to stabilize a lot of things, and they seemingly are happier with where we are. They're not too happy or happy enough to adjust the ratings just yet, but they have alluded to the fact that we might be on good ground or on improving ground. We're also going to have a conversation on our show around the state of M&A activity. There's been a lot of companies buying and selling off certain portions of their companies and assets within their business units, and we're going to take a look at that and just see what's happening. Are people finding a lot of value in certain types of industries or certain types of companies, and how we make sense of that? And then we've also got a conversation ahead of, we know that the G20 is set to be hosted, or the G20 summit or conference is set to be hosted by South Africa next, and in preparation of that, I thought we'd take a look at just the state of South Africa and South Africa's investment attractiveness. At some stage we used to be 32nd on a list or on an index of ease of doing business as a country. We have dropped quite dramatically down to 84th. So we're going to look at that and see how we get back up on that list, and how we see if we can crack back into the top 30 potentially. We're going to speak to the team around that, and we're going to see if we can get a sense of what would possibly drive that for us. Then, because it's Tuesday, we've got a segment called Agri Tuesday. It alternates with a segment called Property Tuesday. So we're going to be taking a look at the state of the fruit industry that has seemingly picked up in momentum. There's a lot more demand globally for South African fruits. We're going to speak to the team at True Cape around that and see if we can get a sense of why there's a bit more optimism around us, our fruit sector. Before we get to that, though, the markets have had a really good day. It was touch and go there for a moment, but we finished out the day in the green, as did most markets actually. If we look at Asian markets, the Sydney ASX was the only Asian market in the red, 0.4% in the red. Hong Kong was up almost 2%, mainland China 2.3% in the green, the Nikkei in Tokyo 1.3% in the green. The FTSE in London was the only European market in the red, down 0.4%, similar to the ASX in Sydney. The DAX and the CAC 40 were both in the green. US markets are in the green at the moment, about 1% on the Nasdaq, 0.75% on the S&P, and 0.5% to 2/3% on the Dow Jones. So by all accounts, very positive sentiments at the moment as we are in the midst of US elections. South African markets feeling the positivity as well. Financial stocks up 0.45%, industrials 0.25% in the green, but resources 1.3% in the green. As a result, the all share 0.5% up, the top 40 0.5% up as well. And if we look at some pricing, platinum pricing back above $1,000. We're happy with that. Only marginally $1,006 an ounce, but we take the win anyway. Palladium pricing $1,081, also up about 1% for the day, or at least since this time yesterday. If we look at Brent crude pricing, also slightly up about 0.75%, up $75.65 a barrel. Not very good there, because that means petrol could potentially go up yet again. The gold price, $2,735 an ounce, pretty much flat. The rand strengthening against the dollar at the moment, about 1/3%. So 17 rand 45 is what $1 will cost you. 22 rand and 70 cents is what one British pound will cost you. If you're looking to buy a euro, 19 rand and 3 cents, and the Australian dollar, 11 rand and 58 cents there. The price of a Bitcoin back towards $70,000 at $69,477 odd dollars. That's north of 1.2 million, 1.21 million rands if you are looking for Bitcoin in rands. So markets seemingly positive today. We obviously still have a lot to digest from the US elections that are currently ongoing, and I suppose those will definitely filter into market sentiment as we go through the rest of tonight and into tomorrow.
Okay, to end with, as part of your masterclass, not MasterCard, masterclass, your quick soundbite answer on cash versus future markets.
So essentially, cash markets are markets that are settled on the spot in cash, and futures markets would be settled at a different date in the future. Futures contracts all have different expiries, so you can effectively hold a futures contract longer into expiry because things like interest are priced into the pricing of that futures contract. So that's why you might see that sometimes you'll have two of the exact same market. One will be pricing at a slightly different point to the other. The cash market would be settled on the same day in real time. If you're to hold that particular instrument into the next day, you'll pay interest for 1 day. But if you trade a futures market, for example, and you're trading a 3-month contract, the interest for that 3 months is kind of priced into the pricing, and so you're not charged a daily interest rate. But that's just the tip of the iceberg on futures and cash markets, and we'll unpack that in more sessions.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. You enjoy your show 6 to 7, and after that it's 1 hour of sport as well, coming up from Michael Abramson. Right, we have the feature called Winning coming up just now. Let's get to your calls, which we'll do right after this.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let's get your thoughts. Thomas in Newcastle, go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Good to talk to you.
Yes. I actually wasn't going to call Ashraf until you said something that I've been wanting to say but not wanting to say about this whole thing of us doing stuff for ourselves as black people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of us, we are so angry, sometimes justifiably so, with what the racist government did, to the point where we feel if these guys are doing stuff for themselves, we think they should not because they are using the government's money. While they are not using the government's money, they are using their own money, and the Constitution allows them to do that. And they are manipulating or using the Constitution to get stuff for themselves. So if we want our own schools that teaches in our own vernacular languages as we would want to be expressing and all that, let's do our own school. Let's do our own Michael houses. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe call it what? Tito Mboweni or whoever we want to pick as our hero, whatever. But let's do our own stuff and leave these guys.
Well, I think that you're right. I mean, Tebe Kalafeng is selling the book and he's raising funds for a foundation, in terms of the marketing space. I mean, and that's exactly the point, isn't it? How is it that, and I'm not saying people must only go to private school route, they must ideally want government schools to do the job of all schools, but if they have to go the private route, you have to wonder that it's not like amongst black people 30 years into democracy there are not enough who have actually become supremely wealthy. There are. I know the majority are very, very poor, but you wonder, those that have been wealthy, what has been the investment in creating new institutions in education? And it's been limited. So yeah, I agree with you, Thomas. Let's find solutions for that. It's a challenge to all of us, I think. Thank you for that. Thank you for that call, right, Thomas from Newcastle. In Buyisa in Pietermaritzburg. Hello.
Good morning, Ashraf.
Yeah, good day. Good talking to you.
Yes. You know, Ashraf, I'm so disappointed with the Speaker Trolip, where actually he started to attack Advocate Chauke with regard to the case of Zikodwa. You know, there is a problem here of the politicians running after one man who is doing his job. You know what? He said something very important that we are supposed to take his answer from this. He said that the National Director of Public Prosecution wrote a letter to the President to take action against Chauke. Do you think Advocate Chauke can be so stupid that he can take a wrong decision when he knows that the National Director of Public Prosecution is paying for a blood? Do you think he can take a stupid decision? Like there is a narrative which was driven by the likes of Trolip that Chauke is not prosecuted. I think he was referring to the case involving Brian Hlengwa. He needs an opportunity to listen to Advocate Chauke's interview in the very same station when he was interviewed by Stephen Houghton. But when the narrative was driven that the docket was in his office, he told the nation that docket was there in the national office of the MTA. It was not with him. Now, Trump is coming with all uninformed things and tell the nation that they are having a problem. The only thing that I can tell you now, Ashraf, the only thing of one.
I'm going to push you very quickly, please, if you don't mind.
Yes. You know what? It's because He's not scared of white prosecutors, the so-called senior management. He's not scared of them. Two, the only issue of advocacy is because he was appointed during the Zuma era. And unfortunately, he's one of the best people actually.
Well, then don't say unfortunately, then you must say fortunately, according to you.
Fortunately, sorry.
Okay,
yes,
let's leave it at that. I got your point, right? Well, I mean, yeah, let's see how it plays out. Is Ethel Trollip choosing the man and playing the man and not the ball? Let's see. Mote Bang, just the last call I can take now in Florida. Hello.
Hello, Ashraf, I'll try to be short to the point.
Thank you.
I heard to you your relation with Mr. Mahlobo.
Yeah.
I don't know if you still remember during Zuma's era, there was this big project of young people being trained as artisans. They're going to close up the leakages and whatever. I think there were over 85,000 or so. That was the biggest one. No one was ever employed. So these people are coming to the radio and just playing with words. And
so you mean the deputy minister is playing with words?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't mean what they say. For all these years, for the past 30 years. Now, what's happening also with regards to the killings of our children in this country? Also, I think the time has come for us to say President Cyril Ramaphosa stepped down. There's no president in whose country children will be dying in such numbers, and he's keeping quiet as if he says not enough have died. I mean, we really have to start a very big campaign to say Cyril Ramaphosa stepped down.
I've got your point has been made. Thank you for that. President stepping down? You think that's really going to happen?
My name is Jabu Masangu, a.k.a. Shuffle the Pack, a.k.a. 1 Hour Swing. I start my day with a short prayer. I give hugs to my kids. I'm very playful. I love all the genre, but Kwaito is number one. Kwaito is our culture. About the late Mandoza, about the late Mapaputsi, and I could relate. And it's in us focus. Ivory Coast for me, it was a beautiful country. I know Utabanye Batande is in Mauritius, Nanades, is a love. SABC Sport, this is the main one. Wonkela Manyama channel, Azalwe, because of SABC.
Catch Jabu Shuffle Masangu, unpacking the beautiful game in a lingo you love on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. Friday. VS Gaming Weekly is back on your screen, bigger and better with more exhilaration. Draw near as we shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring you everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Witness Telkom VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 2 p.m. on SABC1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC2. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, look, we've got about 5 minutes before we wrap up, but if you want to very quickly post a comment about your one word that describes what your feelings are towards the US election, do so right away, 0614-104-107, or else you can post it even after 6 o'clock on our social media platforms, SAFM Radio, Facebook, as well as Twitter, and you can tag me too. Okay, let's end with a feature we called Winning. Now, remember, we chatted before to Adam Jacobs, but now he's currently in the province of KwaZulu-Natal as he prepares to travel to Mozambique. You may remember that we spoke to Jacobs as he embarked on that audacious journey around the African continent for a good cause, as he attempts to raise awareness, encourage open and honest communication about a very big issue around mental health. The primary objective then is to raise 100,000 rands. Let's get the thoughts then in terms of where he is now. So Adam, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting.
Hello, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right. So since we last spoke, what have you been up to?
A lot of cycling. So I left Cape Town and then, I got a bit of a saddle sore when I got to East London, so I had to stop cycling for about a month. It was quite bad, and I think I learned an important lesson for the rest of my trip when that happened, and that was to just slow down. And I'm going through some of the most beautiful places on the continent, and when I go to these places, I must stop and enjoy them. And I think that's an important.
Of course, you should, right? So I mean, so of course the target is 100,000 rands for waves of change. I mean, how far are you on that journey to actually raise the money?
Just under a tenth of the way, so I raised just over 6,000 rand. And
in terms of people pledging and giving money, how does that work? I mean, say someone listening to us now, how do you raise the money?
So that's all through our website. There are links that go directly to the organization, and it's actually all from my followers. So all the money that my followers donate goes directly to Waves for Change.
All right. Then in terms of your journey, so if you take us a step back, where you started and where are you now?
So I started in Cape Town on Bree Street, and then I went a little up the coast. So I went through the Transkei, sticking to the coastline as much as possible, which meant actually walking along the beach for a good few days. So just dragging my bike through the sand, and then now I'm in KZN at a place called Mzumbe. I'm just waiting for some bike parks to arrive, and then I'm on my way to Mozambique.
And just remind for those who can't quite remember, after Mozambique, what happens next? I mean, what's the overall plan?
The overall plan is to circumnavigate the African continent on a bicycle, solo.
Yeah.
A bit of a mammoth of a task.
And when you solo, I mean, are there minders, alongside you? I mean, you're cycling yourself, I get that, but are there people watching you, documenting you, sort of filming you, who are not part of the actual race, but or journey, but they're an important part of the support team?
No, so it's all me. I do all the filming, all the writing, I do all the editing too, and everything that you'll see on my social media is all done by me.
How do you cope?
It's tough, but I love what I'm doing. So, they say if you love what you do, you don't really work another day in your life.
Of course. And then in terms of time, so one is you mentioned coming from Cape Town to where you are now. How long has that taken, and how long to go before you reach that goal of circumnavigating the entire African continent? You're still very much on the southern tip, I get it.
Yeah. So I've been on the road for just over. Been on the road for just over 100 days, so over 4 months now. But as I said, there's sections in countries where I'm going to have to cycle for months on end. South Africa, I was very lucky that there are lots of towns that I can stop in, but after this, it's going to be pretty fast moving. So I've covered over 2,200 kilometers already.
Yeah, wow. All right, lastly, that website, just give it to us once again so we can direct people there and they can pledge too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you head to my website, www.chasingadam.com, you'll find links to Waves for Change and to all my social media, which is all Chasing Adam too.
Right, Waves of Change or Chasing Adam. Appreciate your time. There you are. Best wishes, and maybe we'll keep in touch with you sometime down the line too. Okay, perfect. Right, let's end the show with this comment.
Hi, Ashraf. You're talking about urinating in the streets. My problem is the public drinking in the streets. It's become a norm now. You go for a weekend, Friday afternoon, people are starting to gather and the boots are open and people are just drinking out their boots right through the car boots. And then right through the weekend, public drinking on the streets. And as far as I know, public drinking is illegal. So this has become a norm for me, and I just don't understand how this is allowed, so that's my problem with what's going on my neighborhood and in the streets.
Okay, not a case of drinking and driving, but drinking and walking, and that's a problem as well. Thanks for all of that. That's the show, by the way, the National Pulse, and you think about it, you get to have supper tonight. What for you were the big stories that moved the National Pulse today? I have a sense tomorrow we'll be talking a lot more in detail about the US election. Like it or not, what they do impacts all of us, so we have to talk about it. Thanks for listening, and thanks for the posts on social media and all other comments. Really appreciate it. You are very much a part of what we do here on the show. So that's it. Goodbye, good night. We'll do it again tomorrow, 3 to 6 p.m. Here's the news at 6 with Greg House.
Thank you again. Ashraf SA looks to rebuild relations with the UK, and the ConCourt reserves judgment in citizenship case. Good evening. The International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says the Government of National Unity looks forward to rebuilding trade and investment relations with the UK. He's hosting his British counterpart David Lammy in Cape Town